Chapter 689. Chun, I just saw the news. Don't worry. I'll get revenge for you. Risfar had just seen the news. Johnny, I don't need your help. You saw it too. I can do it myself. If you told me this beforehand, I could send him to the gallows, Risfar said. Now, I can only make him go bankrupt. What are you going to do? Chun Zhao was surprised. Was this Black Ma and White Ma's ability? It's simple. I've investigated his businesses. There are a few large companies. I just need to buy his companies and mess up the accounts. Then, I can sue him for fraud and ask for compensation. Risfar made it sound very simple, as though it was a piece of cake for him. However, Chun Zhao felt that it wasn't simple at all. Chun Zhao couldn't understand the games of the rich at all. Of course, we'll split the profits, Risfar said. Just treat it as that bastard's compensation to you and Fei Lai. Johnny, I don't want a single cent, Chun Zhao said. What's yours is yours, Chun Zhao said. I just want him to go bankrupt. I don't need anything else. After Stephen left Chun Zhao's house, he went straight to his studio. Although he admitted defeat verbally, he still hoped to try harder. Not for anything else, but for what Chun Zhao had said to him. Even if the whole world doesn't believe you, I still believe that you're the most outstanding director in the world. To Stephen, this sentence was a huge morale booster. Just then, Stephen's phone rang. Stephen, did you know? Your friend seems to be in trouble, Halifa Oliver said into the phone. My friend? You mean Chin? What trouble is he in? He seems to have solved it himself, Halifa Oliver said. Halifa Oliver said, it's PLM's second largest shareholder and publicity director, Talist. He sent Talist to prison. To be honest, I admire your little friend. He actually has direct evidence. If Talist is sent to court this time, he might be locked up for 10 years. What exactly happened? It's like this. Halifa told him what she knew. Most of it was from the news, but she also did some research on her own. Therefore, they knew more than ordinary people. A murderous look appeared on Stephen's face. However, after the anger, he felt discouraged, because he found himself unable to do anything. Oliver, I need you to help me. Oh? How do you want me to help you? A few years ago, I heard that Talist was doing some illegal business. If you have channels, help me investigate it. And then, I want Talist to spend the rest of his life picking soap in prison. You and that Chinese guy are just friends, right? No, we're not ordinary friends. Then why should I help you? If you help me this time, I can promise you one thing. Any condition? Yes, I will agree to any condition as long as I can do it. That's what you said. Fuck. How did this happen? How did this happen? Talist was furious. He pointed at the lawyer. Was it you? Was it you? Mr. Talist, now that I've lost my law license, do you think I have to let go of your millions of dollars and let myself fall into a maelstrom? I'm just here to inform you that I'm no longer your lawyer. I don't need you. Fuck off. Talist roared, unable to contain his anger. Talist, I've worked for you for so many years. I think it's best for you to plead guilty now and get the forgiveness of the jury and the victim to reduce your sentence. I won't listen to you. I won't go to prison. Talist's face was hideous. Fuck off, far away. I'm a billionaire. The lawyer shook his head and did not say anything else. Although his lawyer's license had been revoked, as a bystander, he could see things more clearly than in the past. This incident was like a whirlpool that kept pulling Talist into the abyss. However, as an insider, Talist was like a drowning person. He kept struggling, seizing every opportunity to escape the whirlpool. In reality, the more he struggled, the deeper he would sink, until he was beyond redemption. The entire Hollywood, no, the entire United States was shocked. That was because this incident was simply too vile. Everyone in America was scolding Talist. There were even people in Los Angeles who asked for Talist to be severely punished. If it was just the previous crime, it might not have caused such a huge uproar. What really pushed Talist into the abyss was the video of his conversation with the lawyer. That was a crime that could not be denied. Not only did Talist not repent, he even wanted to silence the witness and hurt the victim again. Talist had already been nailed to the pillar of shame becoming the shame of America. Talist spent a few days in detention, though it was a single cell. Although it was a single cell, it was hell for him. He did not want to stay here for a second longer. He had to get out. This wasn't a place he should be. But it wasn't easy to gather bail money. Because the impact of this incident was too great, coupled with his wealth, his bail was shockingly high. A bail of $150 million was the third highest in history. Of course, Talist was not happy about this record at all. Even he could not fork out the money directly. He could only sell PLM shares at a low price to gather the bail money. But because of his influence, PLM's stock price did not recover. In just a few days, it fell by 30%. Moreover, with the public's opinion, PLM's stock price continued to plummet, falling by 10% every day. Talist felt that if he did not sell the shares now, they might rot in his hands. In the past, there was no way Talist wouldn't be able to tell that something was wrong. But now, Talist had lost his mind long ago. He just wanted to get out of the detention center as soon as possible. He did not want to sleep on a bed harder than a rock or eat food more disgusting than pig's feed. Chapter 690. The Big Six in Hollywood, like PLM, had a very solid structure and foundation. It was rare for the share price to fluctuate greatly. If a super blockbuster was released and became a hit, the share price wouldn't rise more than 5%. Of course, 5% was considered a huge fluctuation in the stock market. It was almost impossible for a shareholder's scandal to cause the share price to plummet by more than 50%. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that someone was manipulating things from behind the scenes. But Talist, who was usually a smart person, seemed to be possessed at the moment. He actually didn't see the problem. Someone was clearly taking advantage of the situation, but he didn't realize it. As the second largest shareholder of PLM, Talist owned 15% of the company's shares. As the biggest shareholder, Rasfa only held 24% of the shares. The shareholder structure of a company like PLM was very complicated. There could be more than 100 shareholders. Those with more than 1% of the shares were considered major shareholders and had the right to attend shareholder meetings. PLM's market value used to be $12 billion, but the share price fell by 50% in just a few days. At this rate, the wealth of all PLM's shareholders would disappear by $6 billion. Talist told his assistant to sell all the shares. Keeping them would only cause the share price to fall even more. Rasfa finally made a move and bought all Talist's shares. At the same time, he established his identity as the largest shareholder of PLM. $900 million was transferred into Talist's bank account. Talist also signed the share transfer contract in the detention center. While Talist waited patiently for his assistant to bail him out, he suddenly received news. He received news that his assistant, who had served him for 12 years, had disappeared. At the same time, the money in his bank account was transferred to dozens of anonymous bank cards. Even Talist was dumbfounded by the series of dazzling moves. Talist didn't expect that he would be betrayed by his most trusted subordinate. His assistant knew him too well. He knew the password to Talist's bank card. He also knew the safety pin of his bank card. The so-called safety pin referred to the limit of a single transfer. If it exceeded a certain amount, the safety pin would be triggered. The bank would immediately monitor where the money went and freeze the card if there was any danger. But as long as it didn't exceed the safety pin, the bank would think it was normal. Moreover, Talist was in the detention center now and didn't know what was going on outside. If Talist could see his phone now, he would definitely see countless transfer messages. His assistant didn't leave him a single cent. He took the money and disappeared completely. Talist was still in the detention center now. His mind was blank. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill that bastard. That bastard who betrayed me. Talist roared crazily. Haha, that assistant is really capable. What's his name? Rasfa laughed so hard that tears came out of his eyes. When one was unlucky, even water could fill the gaps between one's teeth. I think he's Quillian, Zola said with a smile. Right? Talist said with a smile. It's already starting to recover. We just need to throw out a few more good news, and the news of Talist being kicked out of the board of directors. The company's stock price will soon return to normal. Talist has been smart his whole life, but in the end, he was betrayed by his own assistant. I really don't know what to say about him. All right, We don't have to continue with our plans. I heard that Talist has started selling his other businesses. Oh, is someone buying them? Yes, we've seen him too. He's Risfar, the one we met at Chin's place. Him? Whose side is he on? Rasfa asked. He's buying properties that have problems with Talist management. What does that mean? What else could it mean? After buying those companies, he messed up the accounts and then got Talist to compensate. What can Talist compensate with now? He can only compensate him with his remaining businesses. I didn't expect him to be so ruthless. He can even think of such a dirty move. Talist was like a drowning man. He sold his businesses like crazy to raise money. It didn't matter. He had a lot of assets and still had a chance to make a comeback. As soon as he got out of prison, he would catch his enemies and traitors and throw them into the sea. Talist, someone wants to see you. The guard walked in and informed Talist. Talist combed his slightly messy hair and walked out of the cell with his head held high. Seeing the person sitting at the table outside, Talist immediately walked up with a smile. This wasn't the first time this person had come. Every time, he came to discuss and buy his businesses. Talist had learned his lesson. He wouldn't let anyone else handle his businesses. If he wanted to buy the property, he could do it himself. Hi, Mr. Fankla. You're interested in my company again? You know that they're all high-quality businesses. If I didn't need money urgently, I wouldn't sell them. However, Fankula's expression was cold. Mr. Talist, I'm now officially filing a complaint against you. Your company's actual situation is completely inconsistent with the contract. I'm asking you to compensate me. Of course, you can refuse, but I'll apply to the court for enforcement. I'll freeze and auction your company as compensation. What? Wait, Mr. Fankla, did you make a mistake? I didn't. You can look at the accounts. Talist picked up the books and flipped through them. The more he read, the more shocked he became. According to the records, it meant that he had made up his assets and inflated the market price. He was suspected of fraud. Mr. Talist, you can either compensate me $110 million now, or I'll apply to the court directly. But by then, your bail will be much higher. Talist was on the verge of collapsing. He had almost gathered enough bail. Did he have to compensate so much? It's fake. It's impossible. Talist vomited blood in anger. Why did he always encounter such unlucky things? Why was this happening? It was as if the whole world was against him. Chapter 691. After Fankula came out of the police station, he took out his phone. Boss, he already signed it. Investigate how many assets he has left. Boss, according to my investigation, he and his son have less than $1 million. That much? Risfar was surprised. Talist had nearly $3 billion. In just a few days, he was only left with $1 million. How was that a lot? If Talist's brain was normal and rational, he wouldn't go bankrupt. He wouldn't go bankrupt either. For example, his PLM shares had directly reduced the market price by half. Another example was the $900 million that his assistant had cheated out of him. Based on the current supervision of the banks, under normal circumstances, even if the owner of the money was in prison, he wouldn't be able to move the money. But this was what had happened. Talist looked like he was possessed by bad luck. Think of something else. I promised my brother that I'll make Talist bankrupt. Do you know what that means? It means that I won't have a single cent left. Fine, I'll think of something. Fankula was helpless. After a few days, the incident's popularity gradually died down. However, at that moment, another piece of explosive news appeared. Talist was suspected of producing and selling drugs. This news wasn't just for publicity. It also listed a lot of evidence. Talist had started his business selling drugs. It hadn't stopped all these years. Moreover, even a witness had come out. The fire that hadn't completely extinguished was ignited again. Stephen looked at the news. He took out his phone and called Halifa Oliver. Oliver, thank you. Remember your promise. I'll remember, Stephen answered honestly. As expected, Talist once again became the target of criticism in America. Especially in Los Angeles, there were hundreds of people marching every day. They wanted the government to sentence Talist to death. Chun Zhao received a call. Mr. Chun, I'm Mr. Talist's lawyer. Chun Zhao was quite surprised. Ever since he crippled a lawyer, someone was actually willing to be Taylor's lawyer. Oh, and then, Mr. Taylist is willing to compensate you $1 million. He hopes you can drop the charges. Hee hee. Do you think that's possible? The lawyer was also having a headache. He hadn't volunteered to be Taylist's lawyer. He was appointed by the court to give it to Taylist. Even if he was God, it was impossible for him to overturn this ironclad case. It was one thing to lose a lawsuit. Most importantly, the risk of being Taylist was too high. It seemed that anyone who became Taylist's lawyer would be public enemy number one. Even his wife started shivering when she found out that he had become Taylist's lawyer. The lawyer had never felt so stifled before. He just wanted to get this lawsuit over with. No matter what, he just wanted it to end as soon as possible. Fortunately, Taylist had basically given up struggling. However, Taylist didn't want to die. His current crime could very well land him on the gallows. There are very, very few people on death row in California each year. However, the Taylist incident this time was too big of a deal. It seemed that the people were waiting for the judiciary to give them an explanation. It was very likely that he would get a share of the death penalty this year. In the United States, the process of a death penalty trial was extremely complicated. The whole process could take years. However, Taylist really didn't have the courage to gamble. He knew that he couldn't get out, but he still didn't want to die. He didn't want to hear that he was going to be executed. So, he just wanted Chen Zhao to drop the charges. That way, his crime would be lighter. Perhaps he could avoid the death penalty. After hanging up, Chen Zhao stood up and stretched. Looks like I should go see him. Chen Zhao went to the detention center. Taylist really came to see him. In just 10 days, Taylist seemed to have aged 20 years. In just 10 days, Taylist seemed to have aged 20 years. Of course, Chen Zhao wouldn't care about Taylist. He wasn't here to comfort Taylist. Taylist looked at Chen Zhao with a complicated gaze. He hated Chen Zhao. It was unavoidable. But he still wanted to beg Chen Zhao. He seemed to be dreaming that Chen Zhao would let him go because he was pitiful. Mr. Taylist, look, do you remember what I told you last time? With a bright smile, Chen Zhao looked at Taylist. As long as it's a war, it's possible to lose. Mr. Chen, you win. You see, I'm not young anymore. I don't want to fight with you anymore. Please let me go this time. I promise. I will never appear in front of you again. Sorry, I can't agree. Why do you think I worked so hard? Grinning, Chen Zhao looked at Taylist. I spent a lot of effort to make you go bankrupt. You. Taylist froze. He'd never connected Chen Zhao to his shrinking assets. He knew the whole story. He didn't believe that Chen Zhao had anything to do with it. Remember the black wolf that stared at you that day? Chen Zhao grinned. It devoured your wealth. You. Taylist stood up abruptly. His body started trembling. Every night, he would have the same dream. A black wolf was gnawing away at his flesh. Furthermore, each dream was connected to each other. Every time he dreamt, he could see the flesh and blood on his body diminishing. Hell isn't far from you. Seeing Taylist fall to the ground, the guards hurried over to check and save him. Chen Zhao stood up and left with a smile. Just then, his phone rang. Hey, Chun, let's go watch a movie tonight. What movie? Of course it's Mr. Steven's Sea Patrol. Don't tell me you forgot that today is July 1st, Friday. Huh. Steven's movie is playing today? Yeah. I'll go buy the tickets now. After Failai got off work, she went straight to the cinema. The two watched the movie hand in hand. Chun Zhao wasn't a film critic, but he enjoyed watching it with great interest. Chun, do you think it's good? However, Chun Zhao was still a bit unhappy that his supporting character died in the arms of Failai's actor. The plot was far from what he'd expected too. But as Steven's friend, he had to go against his conscience even if it was a bad movie. Plus, he didn't think it was bad. Of course it's good. Look at how touching the last scene is. I'm crying. What a bad movie. I can't believe Steven would make such a bad movie. I'm so disappointed. An audience member cursed behind Chan Zhao's back. Chapter 692. Are you blind? That's a bad movie. You can even say it's the worst movie of the year. It's really good. I think you're just nitpicking. Idiot. Fuck. Chen Zhao swung his fist. The person was hit. Immediately, He charged over and started a fight with Chen Zhao. Fei Lai covered her face and watched speechlessly as Chen Zhao wrestled with a stranger. Then the theater called the police. Chen Zhao, Fei Lai, and the audience member were sent to the police station. Then Chen Zhao paid $100 and settled. Chen Zhao didn't say anything on the way. It was just embarrassing, really embarrassing. He'd gotten into a fight with a stranger for no reason. Even if you want to support Steven, you shouldn't do it like this. Fine. What else can I do? I'm going to book 10 shows tomorrow. Oh, right. I forgot. When they got home, Fei Lai saw that Chen Zhao still hadn't gone to sleep. Instead, he kept typing on his computer. What are you doing? I'm on Rotten Tomatoes. I saw someone bad-mouthing Steven's movie. Fei Lai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She rarely saw Chen Zhao so serious about something. Time to sleep. Wait, I'm going to scold him until he cries. Fei Lai scooted over and saw Chen Zhao type a line. Kid, give me your address if you dare. I'll beat you to death. Chen, have the underlings watch Rotten Tomatoes for you. They have more people. It'll be more efficient than you alone. All right. Chen Zhao immediately jumped off the bed with his computer. Chen Zhao called the underlings over. Keep an eye on it. If anyone says bad things about the movie, scold them back. Just then, Steven called. Chen, are you asleep? No. Steven, I watched your movie today. It's really good. I'm sure the box office will explode. Trust me. Steven smiled bitterly. Did you like it? Very, very much. Chen Zhao answered seriously. I'm going to watch it again tomorrow. No need. I'll give you the source file. You can watch it as many times as you want. Steven sent the file to Chen Zhao. Generally speaking, if the source files of a movie were to be leaked, it would greatly affect the box office. No matter how close they were, it was impossible for them to send the source files to each other. But Steven had obviously given up. Of course, he also believed that Chen Zhao wouldn't give the source files to others. This was his trust in Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao was speechless. Then, Steven hung up. Chen Zhao glanced at the underlings beside him. Watch the movie and find the essence of it. That way, your cursing back will be more realistic. After midnight, Steven still didn't leave the studio. Steven hadn't left the office all day. Steven rubbed his forehead. Yu Wenhui's eyes flickered as she approached Steven. Mr. Steven, the box office for Friday is out. How much is the box office? Yu Wenhui was speechless for a long time. Tell me. I can handle it. I've already mentally prepared myself. 45 million US dollars for the first game and 8 million US dollars for Friday. Steven's heart sank, even though he was mentally prepared. However, this number was still lower than he had imagined. So low? Are you sure? No, I've already verified it 3 times. Yu Wenhui answered. What's the rating on Rotten Tomatoes? Rotten Tomatoes only has a 5 rating. Okay, I got it. It's late. You can go back now. Steven's voice was very low. Steven felt all his strength leave him. When Yu Wenhui left the office, she heard the sound of something being smashed. That voice made her tremble with fear. Why is it like this? Why is it like this? Steven vented his anger on the computer, the bookshelf, the mug. Everything became the target of his anger. After more than 10 minutes, Steven finally got tired and stopped. Then he started to tidy up the messy office. Steven is a man of strong self-esteem. One could say that he was someone who cared about his face. No matter how heavy his heart was, he wouldn't let others see it. Steven squatted down and picked up the broken pieces on the floor. Just then, something slipped out of Steven's shirt pocket. Ding. Huh? Steven remembered that it was the lucky coin Chen Zhao had given him. Steven reached out to pick it up and accidentally touched the broken pieces. Ah! Steven's hand shrank back. It was already bleeding. A thought suddenly appeared in Steven's mind. He reached out to pick up the lucky coin, and then for some reason, he smeared the blood on it. But the next moment, Steven found it funny. At the moment, in an ordinary house, a fat man was typing away at the computer. Graham, it's time to sleep, Graham's mother called. Mom, wait a little longer. I'll sleep soon. Don't be too late. Graham continued typing crazily. There's nothing to say. Steven's new movie, Sea of Wrath, is a complete failure. As soon as he posted, there was a reply. That only means you're an idiot. You don't understand movies at all. I don't understand Sea of Wrath. That kind of crappy movie doesn't need brains at all. You're the one who's brainless. The movie's structure is clever. First, four bank robbers appear. Actually, the camera is hinting that one of them is in the bank too. It's the bank manager who got shot. Where's the hint? The bank manager has a total of 3 minutes. 30 seconds are spent on the phone. It looks like he's calling his wife, but he's actually saying something like, "I'm fine." That's the first sentence. It's actually hinting that the robbers can start moving. The second sentence is, "I'll be home at 5." It's actually saying that there are 5 security guards in the bank, and Graham looked at the reply and started recalling the movie he'd watched today. Vaguely, it did seem to be like what the post said, but Graham couldn't remember it clearly. If it was really like what the post said, he had to watch the movie again tomorrow. Graham immediately booked tickets for tomorrow's movie online. Because of the post, Graham couldn't sleep for the entire night. The movie kept replaying in his mind. Early in the morning, Graham went to the cinema. I want to see if I'm wrong or if that person is just spouting nonsense. Chapter 693. Cam watched the opening of the movie. As expected, the scene in the movie was connected to the content of the post last night. Cam's mind became clearer and clearer. Oh my God, it was really like what the post said. It wasn't that the movie was bad. It was that he didn't understand the movie at all. Moreover, every detail of the movie was closely connected. Every scene, even every close-up, actually had a hidden meaning. However, after watching it again, Cam realized that there were still many things that he didn't understand. No, I have to watch it again. Cam watched it again, but he still didn't understand. There were a few more people in the audience this time, and when the audience left, Cam heard someone say that the movie was bad, and he instantly became angry. You don't understand the movie at all. What? You said that I don't understand the movie? Don't you know that I'm a professional film critic? You're a film critic? Come, let me tell you the real mystery of the movie. There were also a few onlookers surrounding Cam and the film critic, listening to Cam's explanation. For example, that killer whale actually mutated because the Mexicans randomly dumped toxic waste. On the surface, it doesn't seem to explain the killer whale's origin at all, but in fact, there are hints. The film critic was stunned by Cam's words. Seeing that Cam stopped, he couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Continue. I only understand this much now. I want to watch it again. Then I'll watch it again. Let's watch it together. I want to see what details I missed. The surrounding audience also expressed that they wanted to watch the movie again. After watching it once, these people actually weren't satisfied. No, I found more things again. The more I understand, the more secrets I find in this movie. I suddenly realized that the main character is actually the villain. Huh, why do you think so? Some hidden details. I don't know if I saw it wrong. The few of them gathered together and began to discuss crazily one after another. Look, someone is saying that the movie is bad. Fuck, these idiots. Don't they use their brains to watch movies? Graham yelled, no, I can't let them slander Director Stevens' masterpiece. This is Director Stevens' masterpiece, his painstaking work. No one is allowed to insult this masterpiece. Graham had apparently forgotten that he had been one of them last night. That's right. We can't let them tarnish such a masterpiece. The film critic nodded. I suddenly realized that I haven't seen enough. I still want to savor it carefully to see if there are any details that I have missed. Me too. It's so enjoyable. This movie is so wonderful. At first, I thought it was a bad movie, but it turned out to be a masterpiece. Then, I thought it was a gunfight movie, but when I watched it for the second time, I realized it was a police movie, and when I watched it again, I realized it was a suspense movie. On the fourth time, I realized it was an environmental movie, and on the fifth time, I realized it was actually a human exploration. When I watched it again, I realized it was a sci-fi movie. Graham wiped the sweat from his forehead. He had overworked his brain. From morning to afternoon, he watched it 5 or 6 times in a row. He opened his Rotten Tomatoes account and found that someone had replied to his post. I just watched Sea of Fury a few times. I realized that what the original poster said was true. It really is a masterpiece. Is it really that good? It's a very magical movie. Every time I watch it, it's a new experience. Those who don't have enough brains recommend not watching it. That's right. I agree with the original poster. I watched it 3 times today, and I realized that every time I watched it, it was like exploring a new field. It's hard to believe that there is so much hidden information in a movie that is less than 120 minutes long. Director Steven is indeed Director Steven. I think this is his masterpiece. No, I have to watch it again. Graham had completely transformed from a troll to a fan of Steven, and he was the craziest kind. As long as he saw someone bad-mouthing Sea of Fury on the website, he would rush up like a fanatic. Then, he would tell them about his experience and some of the details that he had understood. Is it really that good? I watched it too. I didn't feel anything at all. Idiots can't tell. It's normal. Even if you watch it 100 times, you still won't understand. I'm going to watch it again right now. I don't believe that there are so many hidden elements in this movie. 2 hours later, the person replied again. Oh my God. I realized that I'm really an idiot. I actually didn't see the hidden secret. I apologize to Director Steven for my slip of the tongue. Jan Moo, are you guys still posting comments? Master, we've already scolded a lot of people and made them change their minds. Oh, really? Let me see. Chun Zhao picked up his computer and browsed through their comments. Then, he looked back at Jean and Moo. Is this movie really that magical? Could it be that I'm too stupid to discover Steven's secret? Even Chun Zhao was dumbfounded. Whatever, he would watch it later. Hey, the movie's rating increased a lot. It was 5 yesterday, but now it's 7. 5. Just then, Chun Zhao's phone rang. It was right. Hey, Chun. What are you doing? Nothing. Right, what are you doing? I'm bored. I want to find someone to watch a movie with me. Huh. I want to watch Angry Sea Police. Today, my student recommended this movie to me like crazy. I watched it and realized that I didn't understand it at all. Air. Was it really that magical? Did he not understand it at all? Then why do you want me to watch it with you? Because I realized that it's actually a horror movie. The hidden information in it gives me goosebumps. Chen Zhao didn't know what expression he should have now. Horror movie? Where did this come from? This is obviously a medium-sized popcorn movie, okay? There is no horror element at all. Well, if the scene of blood splattering during a gunfight between the police and the robbers was considered terrifying. Are you serious? Chen, you told me that you know Director Steven, right? Ask him how much information is hidden in this movie. I can't even eat right now. I want to dig out all the secrets in this movie. Chapter 694. Mr. Steven. Mr. Steven, good news, good news. Yu Wenhui shouted in surprise as she rushed into Steven's office. Steven frowned. He wasn't in a good state of mind. He hadn't slept at all last night. This morning, he saw a few pieces of news criticizing him. Not only was he in a bad state, but he was also in a bad mood. What is it? Steven sounded a little angry. The rating on Rotten Tomatoes is up. It's 8.1 now. Huh. Why is it so high? Steven asked in surprise. Impossible. He estimated that it would only be 6.0 at most. He wasn't shooting an indie film. How could it be 8.1? Did Rotten Tomatoes make a mistake? Or was Yu Wenhui bullshitting him? Based on yesterday's reviews, the score would only go down in a straight line, not up. It's true. Take a look yourself if you don't believe me. Steven opened Rotten Tomatoes and clicked on his movies page. It was even higher than what Yu Wenhui had said. What was going on? Did someone give him a good review? Steven scrolled down the comments. They were all the same. Director Steven, please accept my apology. Steven continued flipping through the pages and finally found a serious comment. Then, he clicked on the comment. Then, he was dumbfounded by what he saw. Was this commenter thinking too much? Were there so many elements in his movie? Were there so many dark lines, bright lines, and hidden plots? Just then, Steven received a call from Rasfa. Steven, you're amazing. You're amazing. How did you do it? What? Rasfa, what are you talking about? I'm talking about your movie. It's amazing, really amazing, Rasfa said excitedly. I've watched it 6 times, but it's still not enough. There are too many things hidden in this movie. Tell me, how many things are hidden in it? Guess. It's boring if you say that. It's even more boring if I say it. If you want to know, watch and think for yourself. Okay. I'll keep watching, Rasfa said helplessly. Oh, by the way, according to the data from the cinemas, the box office on Saturday has already reached $65 million as of 7 p.m. Huh, so high. For the entire day yesterday, including the foreplay, he only earned a little more than 10 million US dollars, right? The box office had reached 65 million US dollars by 7 p.m. today? You're not lying to me, right? That's because yesterday's people didn't understand it. Tomorrow, I'll contact a few cinemas and see if we can add more cinemas. After hanging up the phone, Steven sat down on the chair. His mind was in a state of complete emptiness. How could this be? Why did the evaluation of him change so drastically overnight? How did a lousy movie become a masterpiece overnight? The box office had skyrocketed several times. Could it be that he had accidentally filmed it and then edited it in? That was impossible. It might be possible if there were 1 or 2. However, the entire movie was more than 100 minutes long. How could he arrange so much content? On Saturday, Yu Wenwei rushed into Steven's office again. Mr. Steven, today's box office is out. It's $86 million in 24 hours. Steven felt suffocated. $86 million? Even if it was a beyond grade A production, the box office on Friday would probably be around this level. Of course, some movies might be able to break 100 million US dollars. However, Sea Patrol was only a low-budget movie, yet it had reached the box office level of a beyond grade A production. On the third day, Sunday, the box office broke 100 million US dollars, reaching 101 million US dollars. The 3-day box office on the weekend accumulated to 198.5 million US dollars. It ranked 5th in the history of the 3-day box office on the first weekend. The top 4 were all beyond grade A productions without exception. The filming cost alone was more than 200 million US dollars, and the other promotional costs added up to a monster-level investment of 300 to 400 million US dollars. But now, Angry Sea Sheriff had created its own miracle with 50 million US dollars. The direction of the media had also completely changed. The media that had previously criticized Steven all changed their tone and began to praise him. After 3 days of excitement, Steven's box office on Monday was out. 99 million USD. This was a real-world record. The first-day box office record was 99 million USD. While Sea Cop had a good box office and reputation, the other films were in trouble. Who would have thought that Sea Patrol, which was supposed to be a flop, would reveal its sharp fangs without any warning? Like a monster, it began to rampage through the box office. It was completely out of the norm. Usually, the box office would be halved after the first day. However, Sea Patrol did not follow the norm at all. Everyone seemed to have foreseen the birth of a box office miracle. But now, Steven suddenly calmed down. While the outside world was full of praises for him, Steven was extremely calm. He knew what he had done. He also did not think that his movie could really take on so many praises. Steven kept playing with the gold coin in his hand. It was the lucky coin that Qin Zhao had given him. He had been thinking about this question. Everything seemed to have started from this gold coin. Maybe he had guessed wrong. Maybe it was just a beautiful coincidence. Mr. Steven, it's late. Yu Wenwei knocked on Steven's office door. You can go back first. Steven waved his hand. Then, I'll go first. Yu Wenwei closed the door. She knew that Steven had slept very little these days. The first night was because of the box office failure. The next few days were because of the explosion of the box office. He was so excited that he could not sleep. Steven sat in his office for more than an hour. He did not do anything. Finally, he picked up his phone. Hey, Sean. Fuck. Do you know what time it is? Sorry. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up. No, Chun. I used the coin. Oh, you only used it on Saturday? Steven was even more certain that it was really the coin's effect. Chun, Can you tell me what happened? You're very strong, Chun Zhao answered, confused. What? I'm going to sleep. Fuck. If you hang up, I'll go to your house right now. Chapter 695. For Stephen, this was probably the most difficult night of his life. Early in the morning, Stephen rushed to Chun Zhao's house. Hey, Stephen, congratulations on your movie's success. Fei Lai saw Stephen walk in. Chin's still sleeping. There's breakfast in the dining room. I think you need it. After breakfast, drag Chin down. I'm going to work now. Thank you. Stephen maintained a polite smile and nodded, watching Fei Lai go to work. Okay, he was indeed hungry. Chun Zhao's breakfast had always been delicious. The couple's cooking had always been good. Both Chun Zhao and Fei Lai seemed to be able to enjoy themselves every time they came. Splash. Fuck, Stephen. I'm going to kill you. Stephen tossed the bucket in his hand and turned to run, but Chun Zhao grabbed him and pulled him out of the balcony. Chun, wait, what are you doing? This is the 3rd floor. Chun Zhao didn't care. Hugging Stephen, he jumped out. Chin, I'm sorry, wait. Splash. Stephen almost peed his pants. But when he entered the water, he could clearly feel Chun Zhao's palm protecting his head. He knew that Chun Zhao wouldn't really hurt him, but he was still furious. If he could beat Chun Zhao, he really wanted to push Chun Zhao into the water. Chun, tell me what happened, okay? I told you, Chun Zhao said calmly. It's all your hard work and a bit of luck. Before coming, Stephen had already guessed that Chun Zhao wouldn't say anything. Or rather, he'd use such an ambiguous answer. It was as if he hadn't said anything. Chun, I won't hesitate if you have any requests in the future. What if I want you to change your sexual orientation? Fuck. Are you? Stephen almost peed his pants. Chun Zhao gave him the middle finger. Stephen continued, Oh, you said you'd have a wine tasting after my movie's success? Wait until I brew some more. You guys drank it all last time. Fine, give me a number. I don't know. Depends on my mood. Are you going back on your word? Your movie has only been released for a few days. Why don't you hold a celebration party after it's released? To be honest, I've never been to a celebration party before. That's good. You must come to the celebration feast. The box office of Angry Sea Police was like a monster going on a rampage. The box office earnings were astronomical every day. 85 million on Tuesday, 73 million on Wednesday, and 69 million on Thursday. On Friday, it rebounded to 80 million, and on Saturday and Sunday, it broke 100 million again. Everyone in Hollywood stared at the box office in shock. This kind of adverse growth in the box office once again broke the next week's box office record. The box office in North America exceeded $800 million, and this was only the second week of the movie's release. On the other hand, the movie released at the same time as Sea of Fury Detective was a disaster. The popularity of Sea Sheriff meant that other movies at the same time were sharing the profits. Even if it was an anime that was released on Friday, it was of a completely different genre and audience, so it was inevitable that it would be affected. For Sea Detective, of course, the situation was good, but for other movies, it was a disaster. Because of the influence of Sea Sheriff, PLM's stock soared too. Not only did it return to a high level, but it even broke the previous record. The current North American box office record was $936 million for Star Wars. No one doubted that this record would be broken by Sea of Fury. In fact, on the 3rd day of the 3rd week of Sea Detective, the box office broke the North American box office record. The 3rd week's box office was half compared to the $600 million in the 2nd week. But even so, $300 million was enough to shut everyone's mouth. At this time, everyone in and out of the industry was guessing where this so-called masterpiece of masterpieces would end. 1. $5 billion? Or $2 billion? This week, it was released in other regions one after another. Although it was not as popular as in North America, it was still very popular. And the rating of Sea of Fury on Rotten Tomatoes had reached an unprecedented 9. No matter in terms of box office or rating, it was already the new king. These 2 weeks, Rasva's mouth was almost crooked from smiling. His net worth had also skyrocketed with the release of the movie. Of course, the skyrocketing stock prices were only virtual assets to him. They were all immovable assets and could not be converted into cash. But the share of the box office still made him very rich. Also, the company's management and board of directors had unanimously approved the project for the second movie. According to the normal share of the box office, the investment budget of $50 million would need about $150 million to recoup the cost. However, Steven's movie had exceeded their expectations by far. Even the company's opponents did not dare to talk about changing the director at this time. They even suggested that Steven could shoot the movie however he wanted. There was no upper limit to the budget, and the company would not interfere with the shooting and editing rights. Even the roles were up to Steven. Of course, Steven had to be careful now. He would not agree so quickly. The movie's release made Steven's career reach new heights again. Now, the 6 major film companies were all throwing olive branches to him. They were treated well, even better than PLM. Steven would not take on a movie casually. The first thing was the script. "Steven, tell me, what do you want to do for the second movie?" Rasfa knew that the first movie had been deified. The second one had to be Steven. Other directors did not have this ability. They could not even make half of it. Although the first Sea Police had not been released yet, it was already regarded as a Bible by all directors. The text-like layout and jaw-dropping structure were probably something most directors could not study in their entire lives. "Fuck," Steven said. "You don't even have a script now. How can I sign it? I've built up my reputation with so much difficulty. I don't want it to be ruined by the second movie." As for the script, all the screenwriters in the company are working on it. I believe the first draft will be out soon. Let's not talk about the second movie first. Have you decided on the director for Animal Supermarket? Do you want to take it? No problem. I'll tell the board of directors now. No, didn't Chun tell you? He did. Chun told me once. He said that James is a good choice, but Chun is an outsider after all. I haven't decided yet. I think James is good too, Steven said. You really think James is good? If Chun says so, then he must be good. Even though we're friends with Chun, this is still a work-related matter. Chapter 696. James, the project for Animal Supermarket is done. You'll be the director from now on. Hearing Steven's words, James was overjoyed. "Ah, thank you, Mr. Steven." James had been admiring Steven for the past few days. He'd thought that he'd learned enough, but now he realized that the gap between him and Steven was too huge. He'd been with Steven the whole time, but he couldn't tell that Steven had hidden tricks in the movie. The truth also proved that Steven was unparalleled in strength. "Don't thank me, thank Chun," Steven said. "Chun fought for this opportunity for you." Yes, I'll thank Chun personally. This was his first time as the main director. He'd obviously pay extra attention and be serious. As a commercial director, the box office was still the deciding factor. Steven didn't need to say much. James was still his assistant. Chun Zhao was also Steven and Rasfa's friend, so James didn't dare to underestimate him. Of course, he was also one of the contributors to See Detective, but his presence was also the lowest. After all, people would only remember Steven. Steven was the biggest star of the movie. No matter if it was the male or female lead, none of them could outshine Steven. Speaking of which, almost all the main characters in the movie had hit the jackpot, especially Yafin. She'd gone from a C-list actress to a box office record holder. To be honest, even Yafin didn't expect it. She still remembered that Chun Zhao was the one who'd recommended her. Otherwise, she definitely wouldn't have become the female lead in Steven's movie. Over the past few days, she'd also entered the ranks of A-list actresses. She didn't need too many movies. Just this one was enough. When the movie had first been released, she'd been criticized badly. They said that she'd ruined Steven's movie, but for some reason, they said that her acting had a deeper meaning. Actually, she didn't know what she'd acted either. But in just one night, she had become an actress with great potential. What happened to being a vase? Right now, Chun Zhao was swallowing a key. What's wrong? What's wrong? As soon as Chun Zhao swallowed the key, he'd feel nauseous and immediately spit it out. Could he only swallow the key for the first time? Do I have to think of another way to get the other keys? Chun Zhao had a headache. Swallowing the key was the weirdest way he could think of. The result was really effective. Could it be that the other keys also had to be obtained in such a strange way? However, Chun Zhao had always been suspicious. What was the use of the first key? First of all, after using the first key, his body's resistance to damage had increased significantly. Secondly, he could breathe underwater. However, he had no idea what to do when he was alone. Chun Zhao suddenly remembered. Eris was now equivalent to half of the Witch Society's library. Perhaps she had more memories of the key. Qin Zhao drove directly to the headquarters of the supernatural organization. However, when he arrived at the headquarters, he realized that everyone was gone. Only Aduz was guarding the door. Aduz, where did they go? Guild leader, they've gone hunting with Gaia. Hunting? What the hell? Did the supernatural organization have any activities that he didn't know about? It's Mr. West's rule. In order to train everyone's combat ability, everyone has to have a certain number of missions and mission success rates every month. Every time they go out on missions, Gaia's success rate is the highest, so they like to hunt with Gaia. Wasn't this just finding a big shot to suck up to? Of course, Gaia's combat ability was great. She was a battle maniac. Qin Zhao had met her when she'd beaten him up. As for the others, Qin Zhao knew them well. If something happened, they'd retreat regardless of whether they could handle it or not. This was their habit. If they were always by Gaia's side, when would they be able to take charge? If they encountered danger, either Gaia or Qin Zhao would do it. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't want this to happen. After all, he was here to be the guild leader, not a fighter. An hour later, everyone returned. Gaia was still injured, but the others were unharmed. Hey, Chun, you actually came to the headquarters today, Gaia greeted Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao looked at Gaia's injuries. What did you encounter? Guild leader, we encountered a very powerful magical creature, West said quickly. And then? We fought it together. West's voice became softer as he looked at Gaia. Qin Zhao looked at Gaia. Is what he said true? Did they really help? Yes, they helped a lot. Gaia was integrating into the group now, so she didn't want to be ostracized. Oh, how's your preparation for that thing? The thing Qin Zhao was referring to was the treasure hunt at sea. Gaia thought for a moment and said, Chun, I still want to become stronger. Oh, you don't have confidence in yourself? I've been following them for the past few days. I realized that even normal situations are too late for me. For example, the magical creature we encountered today. I tried my best but still couldn't defeat it, so I don't know if we'll encounter more trouble at sea. I don't want to be a burden. If I'm just a burden, I'd rather not go. Actually, it wasn't that the other members were sucking up to him. It was just that Gaia had to go every time and take the initiative to fight. Sure, I'll wait for you. Chun Zhao nodded. Gaia's words made sense. They would most likely encounter supernatural powers during this treasure hunt. So, Chun Zhao felt that Gaia indeed had to become stronger. Regardless of whether they could find the treasure, at least they wouldn't lose their lives. Alyssa, do you have any key-related magic books in your brain? Search for key. Qin Zhao looked at Alyssa. Is this a search engine? Search results. We found 1,300 pieces of information related to the key, Alyssa replied. What about key-related magic books? Search results. Key, magic books, search results. 326 books related to keys have been found. Get them all out. I need some information. Alyssa screamed. Guild leader, are you going to kill me? Why? Chapter 697. Qin Zhao thought about it. I can't bear to... Wah. Alyssa cried sadly and hopelessly. Forget it. Let's take it slow. Give me a book first. Alyssa cut off another lock of hair. Just like last time, she lit it before Qin Zhao. Then, a magic book appeared from the ashes. The members of the association had all seen Alyssa's spell. Alyssa was very weak in battle, but she was very important to the association. Qin Zhao looked at the small magic book with disdain. The more body parts Alyssa cut off, the more important the magic book would be. Most of the books couldn't be taken out now. If Alyssa had to summon a magic book, she might have to be sacrificed. Alyssa looked at Qin Zhao timidly and then covered her hair lovingly. She was afraid that Chen Zhao wouldn't be satisfied with the summon book and would cut off more of her hair. What are you looking at? Do I look like such a cruel person? Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. He took the magic book and waved his hand. Kneel down. As if she'd been pardoned, Alice retreated timidly. Chen Zhao flipped through the book and found records about the key. This magic book is a diary. Chen Zhao was very lucky. There was such a message in the magic book. Wei-in, I saw Amy again. She stole my golden key. She also figured out how to use it before me. She started to change. She could sense more elements. Her adaptability to the environment became abnormally strong. Even though I defeated her once again and threw her into the abyss, it was impossible for me to defeat her. I thought I killed her, but 15 years later, she climbed out of the abyss again. She became someone I didn't know. Her eyes were blind, but her sense of smell and hearing became extremely sharp. She found me. I don't know how she survived in that dark abyss, but I know it must have something to do with the golden key. She became stronger than before, but she was still no match for me. Because in the past 15 years, I have also found a key, a silver key. I also figured out how to use it. This time, I killed her and took the golden key from her again. Chen Zhao finished reading the short autobiography. All of the content was from Wei-An's point of view. In his autobiography, he also mentioned the person who once owned and used the golden key, Aimi. After using the golden key, Aimi gained a strong ability to adapt to the environment. Chen Zhao's heart skipped a beat. The real use of the golden key was not as he had initially thought, which was that it could only allow him to breathe underwater. Instead, it was the ability to adapt to the environment. In different environments, the body would instinctively produce certain characteristics to adapt to the changes brought about by the environment. There was also the ability to sense elements. Elements were spiritual energy. In other words, he could sense more spirit chi. This was good news. He could speed up his cultivation. However, the golden key did not make a person unkillable. It only improved certain aspects. Moreover, if one was confined in some special and extreme environment for a long period of time, one's body would undergo even more extreme mutations. Chen Zhao felt that this might be the true use of the golden key. However, he was still a little hesitant. Perhaps the records were not complete. Perhaps even the author, Wei-in, had not discovered the use of the golden key. He had only discovered it from Aimi. He did not completely understand the use of the golden key. At the same time, in the autobiography, Wei-in also said that he had also obtained a key, a silver key. The silver key also had different abilities. However, the records stopped there. This was the only record in the entire book. There were no more records about the key. It was not that he had gained nothing, but it was limited. Chen Zhao wanted to ask Alice for another magic book. However, Alice would hide far away when she saw him. Looking at Alice's hair of different lengths, Chen Zhao was too embarrassed to ask her for more. Forget it. He would ask her for a magic book when her hair grew longer. Alice, don't run. I don't want your hair. Hearing that, Alice heaved a sigh of relief. President, what's wrong? Keep this bottle of hair tonic. Take good care of your hair. What do you mean? After all that talk, you still want my hair. Alice was so anxious that she was about to cry. If not for the fact that I can't beat you, I really want to die with you. Counseling Center. Hello, ladies, it's your turn. Which one of you wants to go in first? The nurse walked up to Charlotte and Cindy. We'll go in together. We both have the same problem, Charlotte answered. Ladies, according to our rules, our attending doctor can only accept counseling and treatment for one person at a time. Charlotte only glanced at the nurse coldly. The nurse's research suddenly lost its color. Let's go in, Charlotte said to Cindy beside her. Margaret was waiting for the next patient to come in, but when the door opened, she realized that two people had come in. Ladies, is there anything I can help you with? Margaret didn't understand why her assistant would let them in. However, since she was already in, she quickly adjusted her attitude. She did not shut the two out. Instead, she had an attitude of, since they were already here. Doctor, there's a voice in our heads that keeps going back and forth. Is there any way to make it disappear? Or do you have some medicine that can make us fall asleep quickly? Charlotte and Cindy's mental state was very bad. It seemed like they had not slept for a long time. Are you talking about auditory hallucinations? No, it's not. It's a real voice. Margaret did not mind. Every patient who suffered from auditory hallucinations believed that what they heard was real. You have the same symptoms? Yes. We're troubled by that voice. It keeps calling us. May I ask what your job is? Witches, Cindy replied. You're joking. Charlotte chuckled. Our working environment is rather complicated, so we're tortured by the noise for a long time. We need medicine that can calm us down. Chapter 698. Mr. Stephen, what's your next plan? Plan. I'm waiting for my share of the box office to arrive. Then I'll go to Mara Supermarket in Sacramento and buy their bottle of Daydream worth $100 million. There was an uproar. Everyone stared at Stephen in disbelief. Some people did not know what Daydream was. Someone next to them immediately explained. In fact, when Mara Supermarket launched the $100 million bottle of Daydream, it caused quite a stir. But the news left as quickly as it came. It did not cause too much of a stir. Most people thought that this was a publicity tactic by Mara Supermarket to please the public. No one really believed in the so-called $100 million wine. No one would really buy it. But now, Stephen was the most famous director in Hollywood. Even some legendary directors, who had been deified, were now saying that they wanted to buy the $100 million bottle of wine. It was definitely explosive news. Mr. Stephen, do you really believe that Mara Supermarket can have a $100 million wine? Most of the people were skeptical about this. For most of the reporters, $1 million or even $100,000 wine was unimaginable. After all, they would never be able to taste their salaries. As for the $100 million wine, it was even more ridiculous in their eyes. Mr. Stephen, how much of the box office revenue will you get this time? This was also what people were curious about. As a legendary director, how much could he get from the box office? Actually, my share of the box office is not much, just 5%, Stephen said with a smile. Unlike most directors, he wouldn't avoid talking about his salary. No one would think that he was asking too much if he said any price. Besides, Stephen's salary was not high in this movie. A 5% share of the box office would be a joke to most film companies. Almost every first-rate director was entitled to such a share of the box office. Compared to Stephen's performance and ability in his own movies, a 5% share of the box office was definitely worth it. Stephen had stated his salary publicly to put pressure on PLM Films. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and give me your share of the box office earnings. Although Stephen and Rasfa were good friends, in terms of profit, Rasfa was a true capitalist, a vampire. Most of the time, film companies would deliberately delay or even skimp on remuneration, relying on their size and status. In particular, the bigger the company, the more sinister their methods were. For a director of Stephen's caliber, the 6 major Hollywood studios wouldn't dare to skimp on his salary. If it had been some other small directors, they would have dragged it on as long as they could and deducted as much as they could. These small-time directors were often angry, but they did not dare to say anything. However, I've been drooling over that bottle of Daydream for a long time, Stephen said seriously, because I know where that bottle of wine came from. Unfortunately, I can't get it, so I just hope that I can save enough money to buy that bottle of wine. Stephen actually didn't plan on buying the bottle. He was returning the favor by promoting Chen Zhao and Mara Supermarket. After all, Chen Zhao had done him a great favor this time. He naturally hoped that he could help Chen Zhao as well. Now that Stephen was in the limelight, his words often represented the truth. The reporters were all stunned. Was that bottle of wine really worth $100 million? Was there some secret that they didn't know? After the interview, all the major media outlets rushed to report it. $100 million wine. A wine even the best director in the world can't drink. The origin of Daydream, the mysterious Daydream. All of a sudden, Mara Supermarket was filled with people. Everyone wanted to see what the bottle of wine that was worth $100 million looked like. However, Daydream was placed in a glass enclosure. There was a 5-meter-wide fence around it, and 4 security guards stood at the 4 corners. No one could approach the bottle casually. They could only look at it from afar. Winip couldn't believe that the great director, Stephen, would personally support her supermarket. When he was interviewed by the media, he even mentioned her supermarket's name. Winnip didn't seem to have given Stephen any advertising fees, right? Last time when Daydream was born, there was some news. But most of the news was bought by Winnip herself. Thus, her influence was very limited. In just 2 days, the popularity died down. But this time, it was different. Stephen personally mentioned Mara Supermarket and Daydream. Now, everyone in America was in an uproar. Everyone wanted to see the expensive wine. Stephen's influence was definitely not limited to just the entertainment industry. His influence had seeped into every level. Any one of his words would have a huge impact. This also brought a lot of traffic to Mara Supermarket, even though most of them just wanted to see Daydream. But the most important thing for a supermarket was the traffic. This was a real benefit. The supermarket sales even multiplied. There were even people who flew thousands of miles from other places to Sacramento just to have a look at the sky-high prices of wine. As a result, Mara Supermarket's brand value increased greatly. It even became a famous attraction in Sacramento. Hello, Ms. Winnip. Hello, Mr. Alton. Winnip hadn't expected the mayor of Sacramento, Alton, to come to her. Ms. Winnip, I have something to discuss with you. Please go ahead. You know that Sacramento has always been in a very awkward position. Although it's the state capital of California, in terms of resources and location, it can't compare to San Francisco or Los Angeles. The tourism industry has never had a chance to develop, so I want to discuss with you about Sacramento's tourism industry. What does this have to do with me? Winnip asked. Although he was the mayor, Winnip wasn't afraid of him at all. Her Mara Supermarket was a huge taxpayer in Sacramento. At the same time, the supermarket solved the employment problem of thousands of people. Thus, even the mayor had to be polite to her. I want to use your supermarket's wine and Daydream as a tourism theme and hold an exhibition. Chapter 699. Capitalists, of course, pursued profit. It was the same for Winnip. They used Daydream as the theme to attract tourists. Even Alton didn't have the right. He had to get Winnip's approval. Second was the exhibition. Daydream had to be loaned out even more. Without Winnip's approval, Alton couldn't do anything. But now, Daydream's name was not only in the United States, but also internationally. After all, it was personally praised by the great director, Stephen. Daydream was also very famous now. With Stephen's help and the fame of the sky-high price wine, it was hard not to be famous. Alton had also noticed this point. During this period of time, During this time, the number of tourists in Sacramento had increased by 1,400%. This was a very obvious sign. Of course, it was mainly because there weren't many tourists in Sacramento to begin with. The base was too small, so the sudden increase of tourists by 1,400% didn't change much. As the mayor of Sacramento, Alton had to show some results if he wanted to be re-elected. But Sacramento had always been in an awkward position culturally, politically, and economically. Its culture wasn't as good as Hollywood and Los Angeles, and its economy was several times worse than San Francisco and Los Angeles. And politically, although it was the capital of California, most people didn't know. Everyone even thought that San Francisco was the capital of California. This was very awkward. The city government had always wanted to show Sacramento's position, but the effect was very poor. There was no effect at all. It was different now. Sacramento actually had a famous sky-high price wine. So, Alton wanted to use this sky-high price wine to show Sacramento's position. But this required Winnip's cooperation and help. Otherwise, this plan would just be empty talk. From now on, all tourists who come to Sacramento will know about Mara Supermarket. Of course, Alton didn't just come with a glib tongue. This time, he came with a detailed plan. There will also be obvious signs so that tourists who want to shop will choose Mara Supermarket as their first choice. Winnip glanced at Alton. It was indeed a good condition, but this wasn't enough. Winnip said firmly, Mara Supermarket plans to open a third branch in Sacramento. I want the empty space at White Coral Street. Since the old building had just been demolished, the vacant land in White Coral Street was still in the hands of the government. However, A few rich people and real estate developers had already set their sights on that piece of land. Winnip wasn't poor, but she wasn't as rich as a real estate developer. Therefore, if they wanted to fight for that piece of land, they could only get the support of the city government. That's not for me to decide. That piece of land is going to be auctioned. Although Alton was the mayor, he was not a tyrant who could give the land to whoever he wanted. But if you can provide me with an evaluation report, I might be able to do something about it, Altus said. The so-called politics was about constant compromises in exchange for benefits. Normally, if the government owned a piece of land, the highest bidder would get it. However, if another enterprise or company could create more jobs, pay more taxes, or significantly help the local area or the entire city, then the city government could sell the land to the other party at a low price. How confident are you? 60%. No, 70%, Alton said. Let me think about it, Winnip said. Actually, she also wanted to discuss with Chen Zhao. Daydream wasn't actually her personal property. According to their initial verbal agreement, Daydream would be lent to Winnip. Winnip would use it to increase the supermarket's reputation and customer flow. Chen Zhao would try his luck to see if anyone was willing to buy the wine. Now that Winnip wanted to use it as a city symbol, it would definitely exceed the scope of their initial agreement. Therefore, Winnip had to discuss it with Chen Zhao. Hey, Chun, are you busy? Winnip called Chen Zhao. Yes, I'm busy. What's up? At the moment, Chen Zhao was lying on the internal alchemy, slacking off. He planned to cultivate for a while, but after less than half an hour, he started to slack off again. I have a plan. Oh, what plan? Recently, there's been an obvious increase in tourists in Sacramento. Most of them are here for Daydream. So I want to make Daydream an even more famous and well-known brand. Isn't Daydream famous enough now? Daydream does have a lot of fame now, but it's not enough. Far from enough. Daydream is only popular now. Once it's over, it'll be much less famous. Then what should we do? If Daydream is connected to Sacramento, it'll be like the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy, the pyramids in Egypt, or the Statue of Liberty in New York. Daydream is just a wine. It's a consumable. Can it bear such a big reputation? If someone buys it, how can it bear the reputation? If someone buys one bottle, put another one on it, Winnip said. Also, the more famous it is, the more potential buyers there will be. Okay, if you think this plan works, then I'll listen to you. It's not bad for me anyway. Chun Zhao's ultimate goal was to make money. If he could achieve a win-win situation while making money, he didn't mind letting Winnip benefit too. Daydream. Matilla's eyes lit up as he watched the news on the TV. He looked at the sky-high wine that the security guards were staring at. Matilla was the richest man in Sacramento. Everything he enjoyed was the best, including wine. But now, there was actually a bottle of wine in this city that he couldn't get. $100 million for Daydream was also a sky-high price that he couldn't afford. But this didn't mean that he'd give up. In his early years, he'd made his fortune by smuggling firearms. Therefore, he had connections with some international armed forces. The price of hiring an international mercenary group was only a few million US. If he could get the wine for a few million, why would he pay $100 million? He was a capitalist. His principle had always been to get the most benefit with the least cost. Chapter 700. Chun Zhao could clearly feel the increase in his magic power. Even if he was slacking off like this was mainly reflected in his increased cultivation speed. In the past, it would take him more than 10 minutes to finish one breath. But now, he could do it in a few minutes. This was the benefit that the Golden Key had given him. He was more sensitive to spiritual qi. However, there was no standard for magic power. Even if there were levels, they were set by Chen Zhao himself. There were 5 levels, A, B, C, D, and E, but Chen Zhao's magic power had long surpassed the levels he had set. Chen Zhao didn't know how strong his magic power was now. If he didn't have a reference, it would be very difficult to know what level he was at. There were people stronger than Chen Zhao. For example, Beelzebub Zophi in Hell or Old Turtle in the River Map. They were all stronger than Chen Zhao, but they couldn't be used as reference. They were too strong. Chen Zhao would be asking for trouble if he compared himself to them. It was like comparing one person's height with another. However, if one wanted to compare one's height with a towering tree or even a mountain, it would be like comparing one's height with another. Such a comparison was meaningless. "Master, Mr. James is calling." Just then, the butler's loudspeaker informed Chen Zhao that he had an incoming call. Chen Zhao swam back to shore and had the butler call James back. "Hey, James, what's up?" "Chen, I'm here to thank you. Thank you for helping me ask Mr. Rasfa. I'm now the director of Animal Supermarket." "You're welcome. I only said it once." Chen Zhao didn't expect James to really be the director of Animal Supermarket. Chen Zhao had almost forgotten about this. He'd thought that his words wouldn't be of much use. After all, he was an absolute amateur in this area. If it was just an unimportant role, he might be able to help. But this was the director. His words probably wouldn't be of much use. "Mr. Chun, are you interested in playing a role?" "Any role is fine." James paused and added, "Maybe not if it's the main character. I don't have that much power." James was still a newcomer, even though he wasn't young anymore. But in the directing circle, he was indeed a newcomer. Is there anyone who died a horrible death? I want to play someone who died a horrible death, but it shouldn't take more than a minute. If it takes more than a minute, it might take a long time to film."
Yes.
James didn't even need to think. What was so difficult about that? If Qin Zhao had asked for a second or third man, it would probably take a while. But a minute of footage was not a problem at all. They just had to modify the script a little, or they just had to add a new character. "If you're free, you can come over and pick a character." "When?" "The crew and I are auditioning here today. You can come over if you have time." "I'm bored now. Give me the address." Just then, Steven's call came. Steven's tone had been much more relaxed recently. It was completely different from the previous few months of oppression. He would call Chun Zhao every other day to harass him. "Chun, what are you doing?" "I'm going to James's crew. I heard he's auditioning for actors." "Ah, are you going to star in a James movie?" "Last time, I asked you to be a guest star in my movie and you rejected me. Why are you acting in a James movie now? Am I not as close to you as I am to James?" "Fuck. Why are you being jealous?" "I'm just killing time. Maybe I'll change my mind when the actual shooting starts. Then I'll go join in the fun." Steven was clearly bored out of his mind recently. He had never acted in a movie before. When Chun Zhao arrived at James's crew, he realized that it was already filled with people. In any case, they were all unfamiliar faces, men, women, old, young, and even children. Just as Chun Zhao was about to walk in, someone stopped him. "Buddy, line up." "Okay." The fat guy pulled Chun Zhao back. "I know the director." "Fuck, I know the director too. Go line up." The guy's coarse voice made everyone look at Chun Zhao. "Don't embarrass Asians." Chun Zhao touched his face. "Was my face big enough to represent all of Asia? Fine, I'll line up then." "Buddy, that's right. I heard that this director is Mr. Steven's personal assistant director." The fat guy patted Chun Zhao's shoulder. Anything that had anything to do with Steven would become a hot topic. Even Steven's assistant director was now in high demand. Even though James was still a newcomer in the directing circle, he was still very popular with Steven's assistant director title. These people might not know James, but most of them were here for Steven. They felt that they might meet Steven and be chosen at first sight. Of course, even if they knew that the possibility was very slim. "Buddy, which role are you here to audition for?" the fat guy asked. Usually, when a crew announced auditions, they would also release some scripts, lines, and roles. Then, the actors would choose their own roles and prepare. Chun Zhao shook his head. "I don't know. We'll see. You can't do this. It's not professional at all." "I'm just here to play. You can't do this either. Since you've decided, you have to be serious and do your best." Chun Zhao looked at the fat guy speechlessly. "As long as you're happy." More and more people came for the auditions. There were already 40 to 50 people outside. Chun Zhao had to admit that Steven's name was really useful. Just then, someone walked out and pointed at the first 20 people in the line. "Come with me. Let's go. It's our turn." The fat guy patted Chun Zhao's shoulder. The auditions now were all for small roles, so they weren't auditioning one by one. They were basically piled up in a large tent, and let the director and the audition director take a look first. Then, the unsuitable ones would be picked out and the suitable ones would enter the audition. Chen Zhao and the fat guy were quite lucky. They passed the first round easily. Of course, the so-called easily meant that the audition director took a look at them. The passing rate was 50%. Chen Zhao and the remaining dozen people entered the tent. James and a few other role directors and audition directors sat on the side. Chapter 701. Chen Zhao glanced at the fatty. Why did he feel like the guy was even more nervous than him? Do you need a tissue? Chen Zhao took out a tissue. Sure, it's a bit hot today. The fatty wiped his sweat. Chen Zhao stuffed the entire pack of tissues into his hands. Come up, the casting director called, pointing at the fatty. The fatty secretly mustered his courage and walked up the stage. Then he bowed to James and the others. Hello, director. I'm Guilu, 30 years old. I'm auditioning for a supermarket cashier role. As he spoke, the plump Guilu began to perform without any physical objects. Just like that, Guilu expressionlessly did the cashier's actions. He scanned the code, took the money, and gave the change. Okay, this one works. James nodded. The other two casting directors nodded as well. Hearing James' words, Guilu perked up. After bowing, he ran back to his seat excitedly. How is it? Isn't it easy? Joy had to be shared with someone. Guilu was sharing his joy with Chen Zhao right now. There are 5 supermarket cashier roles, Guilu said in a low voice. You can learn from me later. You can definitely do it. In fact, the actors who followed Gu AI onto the stage also imitated him after seeing Gu AI's performance. That asterisk shoal, Guilu said angrily. He actually copied my method. I didn't agree. He's plagiarizing. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. How could someone plagiarize something like this? I curse that he can't pass. Guilu's curse seemed to be working. One of the casting directors shook his head. He's not creative at all. This one won't do. Next. Seeing that the actor didn't pass, Guilu clenched his fists tightly. I told you. This kind of uncreative, plagiarizing asterisk shoal can't become a real actor. Chen Zhao glanced at Guilu. You told me to copy you earlier. But then Guilu looked at Chen Zhao with a worried expression. This is troublesome. My method just now isn't working. You have to think of something yourself. Don't worry. I'll definitely pass. Chen Zhao patted Guilu's shoulder. This fatty wasn't bad. This was the first time they had met, and he actually knew how to care about her. It's not that easy. This is a movie with a medium investment. Every character is very important. Guilu said, even if it's a minor character. If they can't display their own characteristics, they will still be eliminated. Chen Zhao still had that nonchalant attitude. Guilu continued to teach Chen Zhao. You need to put away your sloppy attitude. If you want to be an actor, you need to take your job seriously. Guilu continued. Do you know Vincent? Who? Vincent? Chen Zhao was stunned. Was this guy famous now? 2 days ago, Vincent had called him to thank him. Although Vincent only played a role in director Steven's movie for less than 5 minutes, he brought the role to life. Just this role alone contained too much information. It also made Vincent a popular star. Before this, he was just a taxi driver. It was because of his love for movies and his seriousness towards the role that director Steven took a liking to him and eventually became a successful actor. Was Vincent really that popular now? Chen Zhao didn't know much about Hollywood and didn't usually watch entertainment news. In fact, Vincent only had a certain level of fame now. As for how popular he was, that was an exaggeration. However, among the extras, Vincent was a very inspirational presence. Vincent's rise to fame was rather short. Secondly, the media had exaggerated it. They had made Vincent's rise to fame into an inspirational story. Of course, it could also be CAA's advertising strategy. Following that, a few more actors were eliminated. When Guilu looked at Chen Zhao, his eyes were filled with worry. Buddy, be careful. Looks like this audition is stricter than expected. Just then, a short-haired man sitting next to Chen Zhao glanced at him in disdain. This guy isn't an actor at all. He definitely won't have a chance. Chun Zhao glanced at the short-haired man and ignored him. What? You don't believe me? I don't think he even knows his lines or how many roles there are. Don't talk there. The worker next to him scolded. You're next. The short-haired man stood up and adjusted his collar, looking very confident. Director James, hello? I'm auditioning for a supermarket security guard. Guailu watched the short-haired man's performance on stage. This guy is a professional actor, different from us. I think his performance is average. He doesn't seem to be much better than you. No, his eyes, the way he looks when he's in character. People like us who haven't learned acting can't express that. As expected, after the short-haired man's performance, the three directors, including James, all clapped. Good performance. You passed. Next, the short-haired man answered confidently. The short-haired man replied confidently, as if he had never considered the possibility of failing the audition. Just as he expected, he got the role easily. The short-haired man glanced at Chun Zhao proudly. Idiot, go back early. Don't embarrass yourself here. This place is for real actors, not people like you. What if I get the role? Chun Zhao asked, looking at the short-haired man. Here's $100. If you get any of the roles, it's yours. Buddy, I believe you. I'll give you $100 too. I bet you can succeed. Guailu gritted his teeth and took out the money. Just then, the worker pointed at Chun Zhao. It's your turn. I bet you can't get the role too. Chun Zhao gave the worker the finger and walked onto the stage. James was stunned when he saw Chun Zhao. Just then, the casting director beside James asked, Which role do you want to audition for? Whatever, Chun Zhao said. I'll play whatever role you give me, as long as I get 1 minute of screen time. Guailu covered his face. It was his $100. The two casting directors next to James were also speechless. Who do you think you are? 1 minute of screen time? All the supporting roles combined wouldn't get more than 5 minutes of screen time. How could he get 1 minute of screen time? James picked up the script and flipped through it. Then he said, Robert is shot to death in the end. How about that? Chapter 702. Everyone followed his gaze. They were all curious. Who would dare to say anything during an audition? But when they saw the person walking out from behind the scenes, shock was written all over everyone's faces. Steven, how could it be him? Why was he here? Usually, even the main director did not need to be present when casting a minor role. It was James' first time being the main director, so he wanted to do everything himself. But why would Steven appear at this audition? At this time, the actors who had not yet auditioned were all sitting upright. Everyone stared at Steven with shining eyes. Was he here to choose a role too? Would he take a liking to her? I don't think it's tragic enough to be killed by random gunfire. Steven looked at Chun Zhao. James, arrange a role for me. I want to end his life with my own hands. No, then I'll play the villain. I'll blow up this poor old man's head, Chun Zhao said immediately. I'll play an old detective. I'll blow up his asterisks with a gun. I'll strangle him with a rope, Chun Zhao said, pointing at Steven. James, design an action scene for me. I'll use my fist to let him feel my strength. James covered his face as he watched Chun Zhao and Steven bicker on stage. Everyone else was dumbfounded. The short-haired man felt that Chun Zhao would probably be kicked out, not to mention getting a role. I don't care, Steven said shamelessly. I have to kill him in the movie. I don't care, Steven said shamelessly. I have to kill him anyway. Why don't the two of you die together? I have no other choice, James said. Everyone stared at James in disbelief. He actually didn't agree to Steven's request? Could that Asian be some kind of superstar? That was even more impossible. There was no such person in Hollywood. Fine, let's die together, Chun Zhao said. I'm already satisfied to be able to kill a famous director. I can't beat you in real life, but I can finally beat you in the movie. I'm satisfied too. The extras all looked at Chun Zhao with jealousy. This guy could actually act with Steven? After all, this was Steven's first appearance in a movie, and he was lucky enough to be able to act with Steven. Why wasn't such a good opportunity hers? Let me teach you how to act in front of the camera. You're a good director, but that doesn't mean you're a good actor. You might not even be as good as me. At this moment, the extras felt like killing someone. Who cared if Steven could act or not? Even if he acted like a pile of shit, people would still be willing to watch. Being able to interact with Steven in the movie would definitely attract more attention. This was a good opportunity to become famous. Chun, Mr. Steven, can you come down first? The audition is still going on. Chen Zhao and Steven didn't want to steal the show, so they sat on the seats next to them. The surrounding actors instantly tensed up, not even daring to breathe loudly. Nice to meet you. This is my new friend, Guilu. Then he pointed at Steven. I don't think I need to introduce this guy, right? S. Mr. Steven, hello? If you have any roles in the future, you can find him. He's a very professional actor, Chen Zhao said. Are you trying to make him a second Vincent? Steven asked, chuckling. Everyone was shocked and stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Could it be that Vincent, who was known as the strongest passerby king and had played out an unknown story in 5 minutes, was made by this man? I don't have that ability. If you don't give him a suitable role, there's nothing I can do. You've already spoken, Steven said. What else can I say? I'll arrange a role for him in the next movie. At this moment, the surrounding people were all heartbroken. If they'd known that this Asian knew Steven, they would have learned from Guilu and gotten close to him. Oh, Chun Zhao suddenly remembered and looked at the short-haired man. $100, thank you. And you? Chen Zhao looked at the worker. Steven watched as Chen Zhao accepted $200. What are you doing? Do you need money? No, I want to bet. The short-haired man looked bitter. Chen Zhao glanced at him. If Steven found out, he'd definitely lose his role. You asterisk shoal, aren't you embarrassed? I won the money fair and square. What's there to be embarrassed about? I don't care. You have to act in my next movie, no matter what role you want. My promise last time still stands. You can even be the main character. Everyone was going crazy with jealousy. They'd begged for a role but couldn't. But Chun Zhao could easily act in Steven's movie. Steven even said that he could even be the main character. Indeed, comparing oneself to others was infuriating. Any male lead who played the role of Steven would become famous overnight. Not interested. If I wasn't so free recently, I wouldn't even come to James. Hearing Chun Zhao's answer, everyone wanted to kill him. This was director Steven's movie. How could you reject such an opportunity? Is there something wrong with your brain? Chun Zhao's pursuit was different from theirs. He liked fame and money too, but he didn't like to expose everything about himself under the fluorescent lights. Just thinking about it made Chen Zhao scared. Moreover, a main character in a movie would take at least 4 to 5 months from the beginning of filming to the end of publicity. It was fine to play a small role occasionally, but he'd rather die if he had to stay in the crew all the time. Guilu, I'm leaving now. See you if there's a chance. Bye. Chen Zhao and Steven stood up to leave. Just then, Steven suddenly stopped. Oh, aren't you going to give me your contact number? Sorry. Guilu had thought that Steven was just being polite. He didn't think that Steven would really ask for his contact number. The short-haired man was very upset. He'd been mocking him earlier. Now that he'd been kicked in the face, it was easy to imagine how unhappy he was. Chen Zhao and Steven's roles were also decided. Chen Zhao would be a bandit, and Steven would be an old cop. They'd be outside the main battlefield. There were a dozen scenes in total. After entering the main plot, they'd have to fight from beginning to end. Chapter 703. Chen Zhao and Steven were about to walk out of the studio when 3 people walked in. The one in front was Yafin. She was still dressed sexily and had 2 assistants behind her. Hi, Chun. Under everyone's gaze, Yafin opened her arms and hugged Chen Zhao passionately. Everyone's eyes widened. She was so many people's goddess. Now, she was hugging Chen Zhao so passionately. Then, Yafin hugged Steven too. Mr. Steven, why are you here? Steven looked at Yafin in confusion. Ever since the movie had been released, Yafin had naturally received more attention as the female lead. Her status had also soared from the bottom of the B-list to the A-list actresses. If she participated in James' movie, she would definitely be the female lead. However, This was only an audition for a secondary role. With her status, she couldn't participate in this kind of audition. I want to ask James for a role, Yafin said, smiling. She hadn't come here without a reason. She'd heard that Qin Zhao and Stephen were here, so she'd come. She had a mole in James' crew. A smart woman like her wouldn't get carried away. Even though she'd become famous overnight, her status was still unstable. So, she needed to continue strengthening her position in Hollywood. What did she have to do to strengthen her position? It was simple. Continue hugging people. Of course, she didn't need to lower her head to any role like before. Now, there weren't many people who could provide her with benefits. But Stephen was definitely one. No one could say no to him. But it wasn't like she didn't have any. For example, her other backer, Chen Zhao. It could be said that she'd completely relied on Chen Zhao's help to become famous. If Chen Zhao hadn't recommended her to Stephen, she probably wouldn't have her current achievements. So, when she heard that Chen Zhao and Stephen were going to make a cameo in James' movie, she'd directly come to recommend herself. As the director, James was also happy to give Yafin a cameo role. After all, Yafin had a lot of box office appeal now. Even a cameo role would bring her some profits. James, I want to act as a couple with Chun. James rolled his eyes. Yafin, Chin's the villain? Then we'll be thieves. Fine, as long as you're happy. The group of extras all looked envious. Where did that man come from? Stephen and Yafin were actually fighting to act with him. They were either rivals or lovers. Regardless of whether it was Stephen or Yafin, one of them would be enough. Where are you going now? Don't follow me, Stephen said. It's a men's party. Yafin was a sensible woman. Since Stephen didn't allow her to follow, she wouldn't ask for trouble. All right, don't show up in front of me again. I know you're all fake. Norma yelled. The two maids beside Norma were confused. Had they done something wrong? Miss, are you talking to us? No, it has nothing to do with you. Get out of my sight. I told you, I won't believe you. Norma screamed frantically. Just then, Prague walked over. Prague waved his hand and dismissed all the servants. Norma, what's the matter? Are you okay? Norma frowned. Prague, when did you come? I just arrived. I'm tired. You can go back. Norma, I'm here to discuss our marriage with you. Norma, I like you. Let me take care of you for the rest of your life. Prague walked up and held Norma's hands. Norma tried but couldn't pull her hands out. I'll think about it, Norma replied. Prague stared at Norma. No one could see his expression. His eyes flickered with uncertainty. He opened his hands slightly, as if he was going to strangle Norma's neck. But Norma couldn't see anything. After a moment of silence, Prague put down his hands. Norma, I feel that you're rejecting me. Can you tell me why? Did I do something wrong? No, you're great. Even Prague could hear Norma's perfunctory tone. This made Prague even more displeased. He had done everything, but he still couldn't get Norma's approval. Let's eat together. No, I don't want to eat yet. Norma leaned on her cane and left alone. Norma instinctively rejected Prague. A woman's intuition was very sharp, especially a woman like Norma who couldn't see. She had always been the kind of person who was extremely rational. She didn't know when she started to notice it. She just didn't like Prague. She even rejected him. Norma's unapproachable attitude made Prague even more displeased. These days, some strangers appeared around him. They seemed to be spying on him. If Norma didn't send them, then it must be that uncle of hers. Prague wasn't sure how he gave himself away. So, he didn't have much time left. He had to act as soon as possible. He couldn't waste any more time. Prague took out a small glass bottle. After he opened the lid, a faint aroma floated out. Norma's footsteps suddenly stopped. Figures appeared in front of her again. Norma, are you okay? Prague knew that the hallucinogenic drug was working. He immediately pretended to be concerned and went forward to help her. But what greeted him was Norma's cane. Without any warning, Norma waved the cane towards Prague's face. Ah, what are you doing? Prague covered his face in pain. It's you. It's all your fault. Everything, it's all your fault. Norma roared hysterically. I knew it. I didn't notice you every time you came to me. I didn't even know when you were by my side. But just now, I smelled that aroma. Prague's eyes darkened. Norma, what nonsense are you talking about? Just then, a maid walked over. Prague glanced at her. Miss Norma is acting up again. Bring her back to the room. The maid nodded slightly. Yes, Mr. Prague. Go away. All of you go away. Norma wanted to break free from the maid, but the maid was much stronger than her. She couldn't resist at all. Miss, you need to behave. The maid's voice rang in Norma's ears. You're in cahoots? Chapter 704. Mr. Lewis, Prague has entered the manor. Miss Norma's illness is acting up again. I knew it. I knew it was that bastard, Lewis yelled. At first, he was doubtful of Chen Zhao's words and thought that Chen Zhao had made a mistake. Therefore, he only sent someone to follow Prague and planted an informant in Norma's manor. Of course, the so-called informant was actually Norma's butler. And this butler was not a butler in the ordinary sense. He specialized in serving his family. Furthermore, he had a lot of power. As long as he thought it was possible, he could do it. Even if his master didn't agree, he could make his own decisions. Lewis was extremely anxious, although he currently had the most assets in the family. But the true heir of the family wasn't him, but Norma. Norma was the most important heir of the family. Even Lewis served Norma. It seemed that Chen Zhao's guess was right. There was indeed something wrong with Prague. How's Norma now? Miss Norma's reaction seems to be bigger than usual today, and she's hitting everyone she sees. Now she's been brought back to her room. You brought it back to your room? Where is Prague now? In Miss Norma's room, too. Just him alone? No, there's also a maid. Lewis's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what Prague wanted to do, but it would be very difficult for him to do Norma any harm at the farm, unless he was in the manor and had a mole. And who could get close to Norma so easily? It could only be someone in the manor, especially Norma's maid. Bring people in immediately. Hurry up and protect Norma, Lewis shouted anxiously. I'll bring people over immediately. The butler was a little anxious when he heard Lewis's words. Originally, it was not convenient for him to casually enter Norma's room because of his identity. Now that he heard Lewis's words, he immediately noticed. Norma seemed to be trying to attack the maid who was holding her. He had watched Norma grow up, and he recognized Norma's upbringing. Norma would never attack a maid. There was something wrong with that maid. The butler immediately called a few servants over. Follow me. The butler brought them to Norma's room and pushed the door open. He didn't push it away. Break it open. This is the young lady's room. The servants were a little hesitant. Break it open. The butler ordered again. Bang, bang. At this moment, Norma, Prague, and the maid in the room heard the crash outside the door. Prague's expression changed. Oh no, we've been exposed. The maid was still calm. It doesn't matter. It will be exposed sooner or later anyway. What now? Prague asked nervously. Then we won't be able to get the Klallam family's wealth. You're after Klallam's property, but I'm not, the maid said calmly. Undine, what do you mean? Are you going back on your word? Prague looked at the maid angrily. I don't mean to go back on my word. If everything goes well, of course I wouldn't mind you getting the Klallam family's wealth. But now that everything is exposed, do you think the plan can still be carried out? Prague's face became even more gloomy, and he shot a cold glare at Undine. If his eyes could kill at this moment, Undine would have been hacked into pieces by him. However, Undine didn't care. She just glanced at Prague. What if they rush in? They won't be able to unless they blow the door open, Undine said calmly. Undine said indifferently. She had been serving in this manor for 10 years. She knew this manor better than Prague. She knew how sturdy Norma's room was. Undine's mentality was much better than Prague's. Even in this situation, she didn't move. Prague was scared to death. What now? What do we do? Tie her up, Undine said, pointing at Norma. What are you doing? What do you want? Norma struggled crazily, but she was still no match for Prague. Prague lay on Norma's body, greedily inhaling her fragrance. Such a sweet smell. Prague's hands started to get naughty. No matter how Norma struggled, it was useless. Undine looked back at Prague. You better finish it in 3 minutes. Otherwise, You better get out of the way now. That door is hard to destroy, but it doesn't mean it's absolutely safe. Prague climbed up reluctantly from Norma's body. He turned back to look at Undine. Undine was holding a dagger. The dagger was carved with obscure patterns. Just then, Lewis arrived at the manor with his men. What's the situation now? Master Lewis, Mrs. locked inside, the butler said. The door can't be opened. Lewis looked at the metal door that was like a piece of art. Can you handle it? Boss, this door can't be opened by humans alone, but we can blow it up. Then blow it up. We need to get materials from the car. Hurry up. Suddenly, Norma's screams came from inside the room. Ah, ah, ah. The expressions of everyone outside the door changed. Lewis even exclaimed, Hurry, hurry, hurry. Go get the things. Inside the room, Undine dug one of Norma's eyeballs out. Norma let out a heart-wrenching scream, but Undine ignored it. Prague looked at this scene and felt a chill in his heart. Undine was even crueler than he had imagined. Undine was unmoved by Norma's bloody body. She held Norma's eyeball in her hand. Her originally beautiful face had become horrifying. Her eyeball had been dug out without any anesthesia or pain relief. How much pain was this? Perhaps only the person herself knew how painful it was. After digging out the eyeball, Undine didn't plan to stop. He chanted an incomprehensible magic incantation, raised his dagger, and slowly approached Norma's other eye. Boom! Suddenly, the impact of the explosion outside the door knocked Undine off her bed. At the same time, Prague was also knocked over. Undine's reaction was extremely fast. She immediately jumped down from the bed, flipped over, and pulled a lamp rack beside her. A secret door appeared on the wall of the room. Undine directly rushed in. Wait for me. Prague had just climbed up from the ground, but at this time, the people outside had already rushed in. Chapter 705. Kill him. Kill him. The treasure of the Clalams had been tortured to this state. No one could accept this result. Wait, Mr. Lewis. Listen to me. Listen to me. It's not what you think. I was forced. I wanted to save Norma. Just then, Norma was helped up, but she looked scary. Her face and body were covered in blood. She didn't look like a noble at all. There was only a black, bloody hole in her left eye. Her messy hair draped over her face. Norma, what do you think we should do to him? Die. I want him to die in the cruelest way. Norma didn't hesitate at all. Then, she fainted. A cruel smile appeared on Lewis's face. Prague was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Norma, listen to me. Open your eyes and listen to me. Lewis walked to Prague. Did you forget? Even if Norma opens her eyes, she won't be able to see. Butler, take Norma to the hospital. Prague was there, begging and wailing. But everyone in the manor was looking at Prague coldly. Everyone here was Norma's elder. They'd watched her grow up. But now, their favorite child had been killed by Prague. No one would sympathize with him. Everyone here wanted nothing more than to gnaw on his flesh. The butler and Lewis waited at the door of the emergency room. Mr. Lewis, will Miss Norma be okay? Lewis's heart was heavy. He should have listened to Chen Zhao and killed Prague. Why did he have to drag it out until now? Until everything was irreversible? 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. For the people outside the emergency room, this period of time was like torture. Finally, the door of the surgery room opened. Doctor, how's my niece? The doctor shook his head. I'm afraid she won't survive the night. What? How can this be? She only has an eye injury. How can her life be in danger? Lewis pulled the doctor back. Did you make a mistake during the surgery? If it's your mistake, I'll throw you into the sea to feed the sharks. Mr. Lewis, Miss Norma's eyes weren't injured. Her entire eyeball was dug out. Her nerves were severely damaged and she was infected with bacteria, causing complications. Her current situation is very dangerous. You should be mentally prepared. After the doctor left, Lewis exploded. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. Is Butler Prague dead? I want to kill him myself. Lewis didn't care that there was a doctor here. He lost his mind and roared crazily. However, No matter how angry he was, no matter how much he roared, it was useless. Finally, discouraged, Lewis sat in his chair, clutching his head. He kept blaming himself as tears streamed down his cheeks. Mr. Lewis, you are so capable. You have a way to save the young lady, right? There are so many good doctors in the world. You must have a way, right? Lewis suddenly raised his head and hugged the butler. The butler was frightened by Lewis's actions. Lewis, on the other hand, exclaimed in surprise, "Yes, the best doctor. I got it. I got it. The best doctor." Lewis hurriedly took out his phone. "Hey, Chun, help. Come and save my niece." Chun Zhao glanced at the time. "What time is it?" "Chun, my niece's eyes were dug out. She's in danger. Hurry and save her." Chun Zhao rubbed his eyes. "Who did it?" "Prague and another woman." "What's the situation now?" "They said that her nerves are severely damaged and she's infected with bacteria, causing complications. But I'm in LA now. I'll arrange a plane for you. Fly over immediately. As long as you can save Norma, you can have as much money as you want." "Even 10 million US dollars? "Yes, no problem," Lewis answered without even thinking. "I'll transfer the money to you now." "Don't transfer the money yet. Wait until I get there and see the situation." Chun Zhao nodded. "I'll go now." Fei Lai opened her eyes slightly. "Are you going out?" "Yes. A patient is in danger. I need to go out." "Okay. Be careful." "Okay." Chun Zhao kissed Fei Lai's forehead. "Sleep well. Don't tire yourself out." Fei Lai's heart ached for Chun Zhao, especially after that night in New York. After that, he'd slept for more than 2 days. After that, Fei Lai often helped Chun Zhao relieve his stress. "I will." After packing his things, Chun Zhao went straight to the airport. When they arrived at the airport, a captain immediately walked up to them. "Hello, are you Mr. Chen?" "Yes, I am. I'm hired by Mr. Lewis to take you to New York." "Okay." Chun Zhao nodded. Chun Zhao didn't know how much Lewis had paid to skip the security checks and board a plane directly. The plane Lewis found for him was a Boom Supersonic, a supersonic passenger plane that could go up to 1,400 kilometers per hour. After reaching a certain height, it could go up to Mach 2. The straight line distance between Los Angeles and New York was almost 4,000 kilometers. Including takeoff and landing, the entire process would only take 3 hours. Lewis had put in a lot of effort to get Qin Zhao to New York as soon as possible. When Qin Zhao arrived at the airport, a few more people came to pick him up. They were all arranged by Lewis. The journey was smooth, and they reached the hospital directly. When Qin Zhao saw Lewis, he was talking to the doctor. "Where's Ms. Norma now?" Qin Zhao asked Lewis directly. "The patient is in the ICU. She can't see outsiders." The doctor glanced at Qin Zhao. Seeing the medical box on Qin Zhao's back, he guessed that Qin Zhao was probably a doctor too. However, he was very sure of his professionalism. No doctor would be able to help him now. "Take me there immediately," Qin Zhao said, "and turn off all the surveillance cameras." "Sir, who are you? Do you know what you're saying?" The doctor looked at Qin Zhao, dissatisfied. "Can I see your license?" "Sorry, I'm an illegal doctor. I don't have the license you said," Qin Zhao said honestly. "You don't need to doubt my professionalism," Qin Zhao said honestly. "Lewis, hurry up and arrange it if you don't want your niece to die." "Qin, are you confident? You didn't bring me here from Los Angeles just to doubt me, right?" "Okay, I'll make the arrangements now." Chapter 706. Neither Qin Zhao nor Lewis paid attention to the doctors yelling. Lewis had the bodyguards destroy the surveillance in the ICU directly. Then Qin Zhao let them out. "Before I come out, no one is allowed to come in or disturb me." With that, Qin Zhao locked the door from the inside. The doctor wanted to stop Qin Zhao, but the bodyguards stopped him. "Who's there?" Norma asked weakly. Suddenly, Norma felt a hand ruffling her hair. She couldn't move at the moment. She could only let the hand touch her body. "Are you afraid of me?" When Norma heard this voice, she felt that it was somewhat familiar. However, her current state made her thoughts a mess. "I was sent by your uncle to kill you," Norma's body trembled slightly. She seemed to have taken it seriously. How do you want to die? I'll strangle you. Okay? Norma felt the big hand slide down her face and then rest on the back of her neck. The hand slowly increased its strength. Norma tensed up. Immense fear filled her heart. Forget it. It's too obvious. Why don't you write a will and pretend it's a suicide? Norma was about to faint from anger. She was already like this. How could she write a will? Even if she did, would anyone believe it? I, Norma Clallam, don't want to live anymore. I'll give all my assets to my uncle, Louis Clallam. Come, leave a handprint here. Norma felt the person really grab her palm and then leave a handprint on a piece of paper. Just then, Norma realized that there was something on her face. It was as if something was crawling on his face and crawling into his left eye. Have you heard of hermit crabs? You might not know what a hermit crab is like. They like to find a hole and live in it, never coming out. Norma trembled. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. Unprecedented fear engulfed her body and mind. She was born blind and had never seen hermit crabs before. Plus, she had never heard of them in her upbringing. When he heard about hermit crabs, his first reaction was that his hair stood on end. Don't worry, you don't have that much time. The hermit crabs will parasitize your eyes, lay eggs, and give birth to a lot of hermit crabs in your brain. They'll eat your brain, and then you'll die. No. Norma was so scared that her brain almost stopped working. She could feel that there seemed to be something wriggling in her originally empty eye sockets. Is this a hermit crab? Had it started laying eggs in his eyes? Norma began to let her imagination run wild. Just then, Norma suddenly opened her eyes. Illusion? Was it another illusion? This was the first time Norma had the feeling of seeing. Her face was still filled with fear. In the haze, she saw a figure. The figure was always in front of her, holding a very thin knife in his hand. She did not know what he was doing. Noises kept coming out from her mouth. At this moment, Norma couldn't move and could only endure it passively. Have you seen The Ripper? It's an interesting movie. You have to watch it when you're free. It's really interesting. Chen Zhao kept talking. He was really bored. Scaring Norma was also interesting. However, he did not notice that Norma had already opened her eyes slightly and was still talking to herself. Huh. Suddenly, Chen Zhao turned his head and saw Norma staring at him with her eyes wide open. Are you awake? Chen Zhao waved his hand. Can you see? Norma nodded with difficulty. Chen Zhao wiped the sweat from his forehead. Okay, my job's done. Chen Zhao pulled the white cloth over Norma's head. Then he opened the door and walked out. Louis immediately rushed over. Chun, how's Norma? Chen Zhao looked back and shook his head. Go in and see her. Louis poked his head in and immediately burst into tears. Norma, I'm sorry. Louis had already laid the cloth in front of Norma's bed and was crying his heart out. Just then, the doctor at the door finally grasped the opportunity and pointed at Chen Zhao. You murderer! You murderer! Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Chen, didn't you say that you could cure Norma? Why is she dead? Louis could not control himself anymore. I tried my best. Tried your best? How can you still smile when you tried your best? You didn't even try your best. I trusted you so much. Why did you disappoint me? Louis criticized Chen Zhao. Just then, the white bedsheet moved a little. Louis was startled and fell to the ground. What's going on? Norma. Norma's body moved just now. Maybe she came back to life, Chen Zhao said. Uncle. Louis shivered. Did she really come back to life? Louis had encountered paranormal events before, but his thought process was still like a normal person's. He knew that ghosts existed and obviously believed in zombies. Uncle. Louis heard Norma's voice again. This made him even more afraid. Carefully, he walked up and slowly removed the blanket. Then he saw Norma lying there. Her left eye, which should have disappeared, seemed to be there again. However, the pupil was clearly different from the right eye. Norma, rest in peace. I'll help you take revenge. Don't come back to life, okay? You're my uncle? Norma asked hesitantly. She was not sure, but Louis's voice was very familiar. However, she had never seen Louis before. so she was not sure if the person before her was Louis. If she closed her eyes and listened carefully, she would be able to hear it. However, her vision still affected part of her judgment. You can see me? Louis looked at Norma in confusion. Wait, you're not dead? Louis turned to Chun Zhao. Why isn't Norma dead? Uncle, did you ask him to kill me? Huh, why would you say that? You're my little Norma. How could I let someone hurt you? He said you asked him to kill me and then take over my property. In the beginning, he wanted to strangle me to death. Then, he asked me to put some kind of fingerprint on it. In the end, he put a hermit crab in my eye. He said he wanted the crab to lay eggs in my eye and eat my brain. Louis's face darkened. He turned his head angrily and looked at Chun Zhao. Chun, what's going on? I was bored, so I practiced my lines. Can you accept this explanation? Louis felt like he had been tricked. Norma isn't dead. Why did you say she's dead? Think back. When did I say that she's dead? You covered her face with the blanket. I was afraid that she would catch a cold. You said you tried your best. Chapter 707. Fuck. Louis was enraged. Did you trick me? That's unforgivable. Do you know how bad this joke is? Then do you know how bad it is to wake me up from my sleep and come all the way to New York? Chun Zhao stretched. Arrange a place for me to sleep first. Do you know that I can sleep until the end of time if I lie down now? I want to kill you right now. You want to kill me? Wait until I sleep. I'm really sleepy right now. Halfway through his sleep, he was dragged out. He had flown 4,000 kilometers to New York to perform surgery. It was a terrible experience, both physically and mentally. Chun Zhao was still angry when he woke up. Wait, what's going on? The doctor suddenly stopped him. You performed an eye transplant on her? What eye transplant? I don't understand. Her eyes were fine when I went in. Chun Zhao shook the doctor off. Louis, if your niece's hemorrhoids come back, remember to apply medicine. Louis's face darkened. If Chun Zhao didn't save Norma, he really wanted to shoot Chun Zhao. Louis glanced at the housekeeper beside him. The housekeeper understood. Doctor, thank you for your help. Ms. Norma's cold is much better. Please cooperate. Ms. Norma is going to be discharged now. The doctor felt like his intelligence was insulted. After Norma was sent to the hospital, he had been in the operating room for 3 hours. Now, her eyes were fine. One said she had hemorrhoids, and the other said she had a cold. Can't you guys discuss it first before trying to fool me? But that wasn't important. What he really couldn't accept was, Norma's left eye didn't look like it had just been injured or operated on at all. Everything looked normal. This was what he couldn't get over. So, he really wanted to know how Chun Zhao had done it. Just then, the housekeeper stuffed a check into the doctor's hand. This is an anonymous check. You can withdraw it from any bank. There won't be any withdrawal record. The doctor had wanted to show that he wouldn't be defeated by money. But after seeing the number on the check, he was defeated. Sometimes, people shouldn't overestimate their beliefs. This was probably the easiest one to destroy. Chun Zhao slept for a few hours in New York, and then took Louis's connecting flight back to Los Angeles. Louis kept trying to get Chun Zhao to stay, but Chun Zhao still liked to stay at home. His impression of New York was really not good. Every time he came, there would be big trouble. Chun Zhao felt that if he stayed any longer, he'd be in even more trouble. Although the trip was tiring, Louis still paid $10 million without hesitation. This was probably the most straightforward payment he had ever made. Norma, it's time for dinner. Louis was worried that something might happen to Norma, so he took her home to take care of her. However, ever since she was able to see, Norma had been looking at things. She had too much to learn, and she hardly knew anything. So this was what it felt like to be able to see. Norma raised her head. She was wearing a monocle, just like a female pirate. What are we eating tonight? Australian lobster, Japanese beefsteak, and deep-sea crabs. Crabs? Are they the same as hermit crabs? Norma still had a deep fear of hermit crabs. Hermit crabs aren't dangerous at all, Louis said, gritting his teeth. They won't live on people. Don't be tricked by that *Shol Chan. Also, I didn't hire anyone to kill you. He had repeated this hundreds of times. Louis wouldn't kill Norma even if he wanted to kill Chun Zhao. My brother and sister took so much care of me back then, Louis said. I'll take care of you like they did for me. When Norma's parents died, Louis was only a teenager and Norma was only a few years old. Louis was raised by his brother and sister-in-law, so to him, his brother and sister were like his parents. Norma was his niece, but he'd always taken care of her like his own daughter. Therefore, in this world, Louis would hurt anyone but Norma. Louis hated Chun Zhao's joke, but Chun Zhao had saved Norma. Louis was helpless about this. Of course, Louis was very grateful that Chun Zhao had saved Norma, especially the feeling of going from hell to heaven. It was a joy that no one could understand. What's that on your hand? That? A watch. Norma only didn't know what most things looked like, but she wasn't completely ignorant. For example, she'd heard of watches before. Louis only needed to say it, and she would understand it completely. Even at the dining table, Norma was holding her tablet and looking at it the whole time. Norma, do you want some more? No. Norma shook her head. Uncle, I'm going back to my room. Okay, rest early. I'll take you out tomorrow. Norma took 2 steps. Suddenly, her head felt heavy and she fell to the ground. Norma, Louis exclaimed. He quickly went up to check on her. Norma, wake up, Norma, wake up. Call an ambulance, call an ambulance. Norma had only been out of the hospital for a day, but she was hospitalized again. Doctor, how's Norma? Louis asked anxiously when he saw the doctor walk out of the surgery room. Ms. Norma's condition is very strange. Her brain is normal, but her brain waves are very weak. I don't know what's going on either. She needs to stay in the hospital for observation. You didn't find anything? No. Ms. Norma's signs are all normal. We can't find out what's wrong with her. I really shouldn't have hoped for you guys, Louis said angrily. For a doctor, being questioned in front of him was very embarrassing. This was something that hurt his pride, and the doctor was also angry. Mr. Louis, it could also be that person from last night. Something went wrong with his surgery, the doctor said meaningfully. You don't have the ability, so you doubt other people's abilities? Although Louis said this, he couldn't help but be suspicious. After the doctor left, Louis still called Chun Zhao. If Norma's coma was really because of Chun Zhao's treatment, perhaps only Chun Zhao could wake Norma up now. Hey Chun, I think you might have to come to New York. What? Are you messing with me? Norma's unconscious. Chapter 708. Chin, I didn't mean that, but the doctors are almost sure about Norma's problem. So I need your help. Tell me about Norma's symptoms first. She's in a coma without any symptoms, Louis said. The doctors can't tell either. Her body's fine, but she won't wake up. Chun Zhao's heart skipped a beat. Life and death crisis? Take Norma home immediately. Also, arrange a plane for me. Wait, I'm not the only one going to New York, Chun Zhao said. Chun, do you know the reason? I'm not sure, Chun Zhao answered. What do you mean? Because it's not an illness or injury. It's something more complicated, Chun Zhao said. A supernatural power. Chun Zhao wasn't sure because Norma's situation was different from the first time. Board's daughter, Aisha, had been attacked and her life was in danger. Because of Chun Zhao's help, she successfully survived. Then, she was unconscious for 3 days and went through a life crisis. However, Aisha didn't wake up in the middle. Norma had woken up after Chun Zhao's treatment that day. From Louis's words, all the signs pointed to the fact that Norma was going through a life crisis right now. Therefore, Chun Zhao couldn't be sure if Norma was really going through a life crisis. What? What does this have to do with Norma? She's just a normal girl. Okay, no matter what, don't panic. Wait for me to bring people over. Isn't it very troublesome this time? You're actually bringing people over? Some of my subordinates, Chun Zhao said. Oh, disperse everyone in the house so they won't be affected. Will it be dangerous? Of course, if it's really as I guessed, Chun Zhao said. Okay, stop talking. I'll go get people now. Hurry up and prepare a plane for me. Going out again? Failai asked. Yes. The patient I saved yesterday also seems to be showing signs of a life and death crisis. Failai knew what a life and death crisis was. When Aisha had gone through it, she was one of the people involved. It was also that incident that had exposed her to supernatural things. Failai wasn't worried about Chun Zhao. After all, she knew that he dealt with it easily. Gaia, where are you now? My gym just closed. What's wrong? There's an operation. It'll take at least 2 days. Get ready. This operation is going to be very exciting. Hearing this, Gaia became excited. Chun Zhao heard Gaia clapping her hands over the phone. 1 hour, LAX airport. Okay. After hanging up, Chun Zhao called West. West, call everyone. There's an operation. Call Aduz as well. Just treat it as one of the benefits of our association. Guild leader, didn't you say it's an operation? West felt that since it was an operation, there would definitely be danger. Would Chun Zhao gather all the normal enemies? Therefore, from West's point of view, this operation must be very dangerous. Perhaps it would be the same as the last time when he fought with his family, and he would have to go on an adventure somewhere. Dangerous for that. I don't understand. This mission might involve a shaman who awakened on the 3rd day. Puff, a shaman who awakened on the 3rd day? Awakening the tribulation of life on the 3rd day was something that only existed in legends. Guild leader, if you dare to be a deserter, I'll throw you out of the plane. Chun Zhao knew what West was going to say without needing to speak. West's face was covered in tears, thinking about how scary Chun Zhao was. As expected, Chun Zhao was even scarier than the tribulation of life on the 3rd day. A group of people gathered at the airport. Apart from West, everyone was excited. Their big brother security guard, Aduz, was dressed casually. He dragged 2 suitcases behind him, his face filled with excitement. Guild leader, thank you so much. Where are we going this time? When Aduz heard that it was a vacation, he excitedly stuffed all the luggage into the suitcases and rushed to the airport. New York. The others were also excited. New York. Chun Zhao wasn't in a good mood, because every time he went to New York, nothing good would happen. The first time was the grandfather and the evil spirit society. Chun Zhao had gone all out in that battle. The second time was the god of otherworldlings, something that looked like Yog Saron. The day before yesterday was the 3rd time. Chun Zhao came and left in a hurry. He thought that he would be safe this time, but in less than 2 days, he had to go to New York again. Chun Zhao felt that this time would be even more dangerous than the second time. West frowned. He really didn't want to pour cold water on them. These kids were still too young. Did they really think it was a vacation with the guild leader? President, Belia asked, are you paying for the plane tickets and accommodation to New York? Private plane. Luxurious manner, Chun Zhao said. Huh, private plane? President, you mean, we're going to take a private plane? Everyone was excited. Normal people might never have the chance to take a private plane in their entire lives. But now, they had the chance to take a private plane. How could they not be excited? The more benefits Chun Zhao lost, the more uneasy West was. Was he going to save the world this time? I'm willing to even save the world if I can take a private plane, Moore said. His and Mord's injuries were completely healed. They'd heard that when they were injured, the society had a big operation. They beat their chests and stomped their feet, annoyed that they'd missed it. Chun Zhao and West looked at Moore. Their gazes were very unfriendly. Moore didn't know and was still excited. Just then, the captain who'd sent Chun Zhao to New York last time came again. Mr. Chun, we meet again. Oh, hello, Mr. Kid. Is the plane ready? Yes, please follow me. Everyone boarded the plane excitedly. Then they started jumping up and down like Granny Lou entering the Grandview Garden. It wasn't Chun Zhao's first time taking a private plane. The novelty was long gone. Actually, there was no difference between a private plane and a normal plane. Buying a business class ticket wouldn't make much of a difference. Of course, private planes were definitely more enjoyable in terms of service. The stewardess didn't understand why these bumpkins could take a private plane, but to be able to sit here, they must know rich people. Chapter 709. The plane landed smoothly. The people from the supernatural organization still wanted more. They wanted to circle around in the sky a few more times. 3 hours wasn't enough for them. Chen Zhao realized that there were fewer people at the New York airport today. They landed at JFK, one of the busiest airports in the world. Almost 200,000 people took off and landed here every day. The annual capacity was close to 60 million people. But Chen Zhao realized that the departure lounge was a bit empty today. There were only a few people. Just then, the broadcast sounded. Sorry, dear passengers. Due to the heavy fog, the airport will be closed temporarily. We apologize for the delay. So it's the fog, Chen Zhao realized. But New York was a coastal city, so it was rather humid. The clouds and humidity from the sea would often cover the entire city at dawn. But it was nighttime now, so the runway had lights. The fog was probably very heavy to stop flights at the airport temporarily. They didn't notice it when they landed. When they came out of the airport, they realized that the fog was indeed quite heavy. President, where are we going now? Waiting for the car, Chen Zhao said. Soon, a few luxury cars stopped before them. Hello, Mr. Chen. The boss asked us to pick you up. Okay, help me arrange for them too. Seeing the luxury cars, everyone was very happy. West, on the other hand, had a bitter expression on his face. Just stay here and be happy. You'll all cry later. Wow, such a huge manor. Moore looked at the huge manor in excitement. The president really didn't lie to us. Moore had also stared out the window. Don't embarrass yourself there, Jalanash said coldly. We're not here for a vacation. We're here for a mission. What mission? Belia said. I think the president must think that our daily training is too hard. So he found an excuse to call us here. Huh. West glanced at Belia. Looks like you don't know our president well enough. Would he be so kind as to call them to New York with a mission as an excuse? Aren't you being too optimistic? The car slowly came to a stop, and Louis immediately came to greet them. Chen, you're finally here. Louis looked at the strange group behind Chen Zhao. There were both men and women. 2 of them were older. Just where did this strange combination come from? They are. I'm here to help, Chen Zhao said indifferently. Them? Help? What could they do to help? Louis was very doubtful. All right, since they were brought here by Chen Zhao, he would believe him for now. Did Norma bring it back? Yes, I've brought it back. It's upstairs now. Have someone make arrangements for them. Let's go upstairs. Louis and Chen Zhao went to Norma's room and saw her lying on the bed. Chen Zhao could vaguely feel a trace of magic in the room. That's right. This feeling was the same as Aisha's last time. At this moment, Norma was really going through a tribulation of life. Chen, how's it going? Pretty much what I predicted, Chen Zhao said. So what do we do now? Send all the servants and bodyguards away. What happens next is not something they can participate in. Why? Tonight or tomorrow night, a large number of evil spirits will attack this place. Or more accurately, they will attack her. Why? Don't ask me why. I want to know why. Anyway, that's what happened. She'll wake up after midnight tomorrow night. You mean, as long as she survives the evil spirit attack, she'll wake up?
Yes.
Why? Go ask God. Chen Zhao rolled his eyes. Will there be a lot of evil spirits attacking? Probably a lot. Can you handle it?
Louis asked worriedly.
And you still have to protect Norma. Don't worry. The people I brought are all professionals. Just then, cheers and laughter came from downstairs. Chen Zhao and Louis walked to the balcony and saw that the people from the association had all changed into swimsuits and were playing by the pool. Are they professionals? Louis looked at Chen Zhao. You have to understand that people with abilities are usually different from ordinary people. The night was peaceful. At least, the manor was filled with cheers and laughter. They had never enjoyed such a luxurious lifestyle before. The food and lodging were all the best. With their salaries, they probably couldn't even spend a night here. How could they let go of such a great opportunity? Early the next morning, Louis asked all the servants and bodyguards to go on holiday. President, where are we going to play today? Belia looked at Chen Zhao expectantly. Chen Zhao's face darkened. I asked you to come for a mission, not to play. Can't you see how thick the fog is? Do you believe that you'll die on the road when you turn a corner? The fog in New York was even thicker than last night. Such a heavy fog had seriously affected the safety of traveling in New York. The visibility was less than 5 meters. Even with the headlights on, one could only see a blurry light. This reminded Chan Zhao of the classic horror movie, The Fog. Everyone originally planned to stroll around Times Square today and then go to the Statue of Liberty to take a look. In the end, the fog ruined their plans. While everyone was making a ruckus, Chun Zhao was calmly cultivating in his room. Of course, this so-called calmness was only for the other people in the association. Fuck. If I'm this diligent at home, I'd probably become an immortal. In the depths of the dirty sewers, there was an underground palace. Of course, it was too much to call it a palace, but it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it a mansion. This used to be the grandfather's residence. Even though the grandfather was an evil ghost, he still enjoyed things that humans couldn't enjoy. However, not many people knew about this place. Most of them weren't humans either. The grandfather had passed away for a long time, but someone else occupied this place. On the surface, Undine was an ordinary maid in the Clallam family, but she actually had another identity. Probably no one knew that the grandfather wasn't the absolute ruler of the evil spirit society. There was also an unknown existence, matriarch. From her name, one could tell that she had an unbreakable relationship with the grandfather. If the grandfather was the tyrant of the evil spirit society, then matriarch was its brain. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.